Good evening, folks. I'm going to ask Mr. George Dunkley to lead us in the pledge, please. Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. The first item on the agenda is the folks from Champlain Lake George Regional Planning, Allison Gaddy, Sam? Yep. Sam? I'm sorry, I think there's another young lady here, but okay, Ashley Silva, okay. We're going to be going over the comprehensive plan, but is basically for the board members. And then we'll move on from there. Allison, thank you.
All right, thank you. As mentioned, my name is Allison Gaddy. I'm joined by my colleague Sam Lake. We are from the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board, and we're also joined by Ashley Lai. She is a consultant from AKRF that helped us with some of the technical components of this planning process. Louder? Okay.
There's no
I don't have a mic.
Right in front of you.
No, there's no mic. No.
I'll project. All right. So as
hit the lights?
oh yes, please. As was mentioned, this is a presentation for the town board to lead them through the comprehensive planning process, the findings, and basically how we got here. There is no public public input tonight, but there are two upcoming opportunities. The first one is scheduled for April 2nd. The Comprehensive Plan Committee will be hosting a public hearing, and then later on, the town board will host a public hearing as well. There is consistent opportunity to provide written public comment to either myself via email or at the town hall. So thank you for joining us tonight. Get started. Okay. So tonight, as I said, we will go through we'll do an overview of the comprehensive plan and the planning process and discuss the visions, goals, and priority strategies that have come out of this plan, as well as the next steps needed for adoption and later on down the road, implementation of the recommendations and strategies that have come out of this plan. So I also want to congratulate the town board and the comprehensive plan committee on getting this far. This has been a long process, almost exactly 2 years to the date that we first met with the committee to bring this plan to life. It's been a lot of work on their part, as well as the public. We've had 4 public workshops that have been greatly attended, and we've really gotten a lot of information about your town that way. So what is a comprehensive plan exactly? It is a long-range guiding document that sets goals and priorities for investments in the future of your community. These investments can be physical, economic, environmental. It includes an inventory analysis of existing conditions in your community, identifies opportunities for the future, and describes the desires that your community envisions or has as a whole for the future. The plan is rooted in data, but also guided by that public engagement that we did throughout the process. And it's anchored by a unifying community vision that was developed with input from the Comprehensive Plan Committee, as well as public input in those workshops. Also importantly, having a comprehensive plan improves your community's success in the grant application process. If there is a plan or a priority identified in your comprehensive plan or a project, that gives that project extra points when applying for funding from the state or from the other entities. It also serves as the basis for any zoning or policy updates your community might make in the future. In New York State, if you have a comprehensive plan, your zoning code must be rooted in that comprehensive plan. So they need to align with each other. And that ensures that your land use ordinance follows along with what the community envisions for its future and its future growth and development. And then just as a note, the last town comprehensive plan was adopted in 2005. So we're at the 20-year mark, which is a great time to refresh and adopt a new one. So again, I would like to thank that comprehensive plan committee. It was a long 2-year process that requires a lot of time commitment, and they really helped guide us and keep us rooted in the community. And that local knowledge is very important when developing these sort of plans. All right. This plan was funded by the New York State Department of State Smart Growth Community Planning Program. So there are elements of smart growth, which is an approach to planning that encourages the creation of livable, sustainable communities. So we incorporate these themes throughout the plan, but in ways that are compatible with the community, and in ways that we use them afterwards as a way to ground the community in these principles, but they're always in ways that are compatible with what we heard through the workshops. I'll hand it off to Sam.
So the comprehensive plan process can kind of be summed up in these 4 steps. So first we have setting the stage. And this is where we grab all the data, we do research, we analyze all of this. It helps us understand what's going on right now here in Johnsburg. We also talk to a number of stakeholders, local folks, and we review many local and regional plans that give us a better idea of the work that already has been done here, as well as what's going on, in towns around Johnsburg. Knowing all this, we move on to kind of the opportunity section, where we identify key areas of improvement. This is where we develop these goals and strategies that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And in general, how can we improve quality of life for residents of Johnsburg? While all of this is going on, we have the Engage, which everything that we produced, everything that we kind of us and the committee have come up with, constantly gets feedback from the public. So everything gets public comment, everything is reviewed and kind of decided on by the comprehensive plan committee. And then finally, as the last step, is the draft and adopt. This is where we draft the plan. This is where we engage the board. This is where we engage the public with everything put together. We will revise the plan after we get comments back, and the town will adopt it at the end. This is a little timeline kind of illustrating the public participation and engagement that we've had throughout the last 2 years. We've gone through a community survey, we had visioning workshops, we had a virtual workshop. Every workshop had a goal to inform a different element of the comprehensive plan. And obviously we are here at the end reviewing everything, and hopefully we, in the future, push to implement the plan's goals. This is just a little picture, a couple of pictures of us here at Tannery Pond at the Joe Minner Lodge, and a workshop there at the North Creek Firehouse. So, after all this engagement through the surveys and the workshops, what have we learned? Generally, we've learned that the cost of housing is affecting the people's ability to live and stay in Johnsburg. Affordability is, in general, a problem. The town's recreational assets are a point of pride for the community, and the environment is what makes Johnsburg special and why a lot of people live here. There are services that are needed to support both young and aging residents. Future growth is okay, but the general feeling is that growth should be concentrated to the hamlet areas as to not affect the environment and the character of the community. There are opportunities to unify and connect the hamlets of Johnsburg, and in general, just a general optimism for the future of the community. So Johnsburg at a glance, this is where that data part comes in. It helps us reinforce the engagement and input that we learned from the public, but also helps us identify what services and what are the needs of Johnsburg. So in the since 2000, the population has been decreasing. Johnsburg has an aging population with a median age of 56. There are fewer younger families in town as school enrollment has been declining. Johnsburg has the second lowest median household income in Warren County. And again, with the affordable housing need, there's a gap of over $75,000 between home sales and the median income. And all of this brings us to the vision.
So, taking all we heard in our first 2 workshops and our discussions with the Comprehensive Plan Committee and the community survey, we put together a future vision for Johnsburg. So when we're thinking in terms of the comprehensive plan, it's a forward-looking statement and it's aspirational. What does this community want to look like in 2035? So in 2035, the town of Johnsburg will be a supportive community for people of all ages with diverse housing opportunities and a robust, broad-based economy that balances growth with stewardship of natural resources. The town will welcome and embrace new residents and visitors while meeting the needs of the existing residents and workforce. Each of our 6 hamlets has a unique identity and is connected to the others through a shared sense of history and community pride. So this is the guiding statement that kind of leads the rest of the planning process. This is what the goals and the recommendations and the strategies hope to achieve by 2035. And also through our listening, we were able to organize this plan's goals around 4 primary issue areas. And that's housing, economy and economic development, community facilities, and land use. But on top of that, we realized there were these really kind of overarching supporting themes that were woven through all of the goals and strategies that really define this community and defined its future needs and wants. And those were supporting the town's aging population, promoting universal accessibility and inclusive design, business support and workforce training, infrastructure to drive economic development and housing opportunities, attracting new residents, and enhancing the town's natural resources and environmental assets. So as you look at the plan, the goals are organized by those issues, but they're also often denoted with these colorful medallions as they are to emphasize that they are all intertwined and working together to achieve this vision. So how do we get here? As mentioned, the vision is this large, overarching, aspirational statement. And then there are goals, which are still very broad. They're organized by those categories, but they are meant to work together to achieve that vision. And then we go into the strategies and recommendations, and those are a little more pointed, and they are meant to achieve those goals. So all of these things work together in unison to advance the vision and the goals of the comprehensive plan. So we'll go first. Johnsburg's housing goals are really two major points. It's expand housing opportunities and diversity of housing stock. And this we heard from folks who are looking for places for young families. There are very few rental homes in the community. And then the second goal is to facilitate a greater balance of local housing needs with the tourism economy. So this is in recognition that the tourism economy is very important to this community, but there needs to be a housing availability for locals and people who are working in that industry. So there are over 100 recommended actions in this plan. So we worked with the Comprehensive Plan Committee and using ideas that we heard throughout the process and also plans that had already happened to identify priority actions. So these are things that the town has already been working on, or things that are very important to the town right now. So within the housing framework, we looked at reviewing and updating the town zoning code. This really goes hand in hand with the comprehensive plan, but it's also something the town has applied for a grant for, and that, you know, there is funding. So it makes sense that this is a priority short-term project that can be achieved or initiated in the next year or so. Also, something that came up, and this will work to balance that need of local housing, is to expand the availability of traditional visitor lodging as bed and breakfast, inns, motels, and hotels. This will also support that recreation economy that is so important to Warren County and Johnsburg. So as far as the goals related to the economy, we have expand and enhance the four-season economy, harness the benefits of the recreation and tourism economy, and tap into that remote worker economy. So priority actions here involve supporting and working with Johnsburg Central School to recognize the interconnectedness of the school and the town, and really promote that as a way of attracting young families here, and also just coordinating and recognizing that these two institutions do work together. And then promote the quality of life and access to recreational resources. This is something that is important to Johnsburg residents. We heard it in our community survey, we heard it in all of our workshops, and it obviously looking around, that is something that the town values here. Within community facilities, this is a little more broad. We say improve access to the town's recreation facilities. Johnsburg has world-class recreation facilities, and we want to maintain that access for everyone. Improve support services for families, and this includes daycare, senior care, all of those wraparound services that really help families live in a community like Johnsburg. Improve and enhance Johnsburg's recreation and cultural assets. So this also includes those historical cultural assets that exist throughout the community. Retain and enhance emergency services like the Johnsburg EMS and volunteer fire companies, and expand ride sharing and public transportation. This goes hand in, there are two elements working together that we heard for the desire for ride sharing or public transportation. And this was sort of from the senior community, but also from people who host guests and guests in the community that might want to take the shuttle to Gore or go between hiking trails, and also just for an overall benefit of the residents of Johnsburg to connect to other localities. There are many more priority actions that we can go through. One that I think would be really beneficial is to organize a campaign to recruit new volunteers for fire companies. There are also ways to recruit volunteers in kind of a non-traditional sense that we've seen work in other towns, like seasonal availability for volunteerism or different levels of volunteerism. Not someone might want to participate but might not be able to respond to calls, things like that. And that will really, enable the firehouses to have more participation. As far as land use goals, this is really kind of the meat of the comprehensive plan. We want to update those land use regulations to achieve all of our housing, economic, and community goals that we've talked about throughout the plan. Celebrate the unique character of the hamlet, and protect and conserve the natural resources of the community. And our priority actions here also revolve around the update of the zoning code, implementing a wayfinding and gateway treatment system to establish a sense of arrival in place, not only for the town of Johnsburg, but for each hamlet and maybe some of those community identified special places in the town. We have some business growth and vitality of hamlet centers here. Lots of other things. Let's see. Something that I think is on the agenda for tonight, implementing that North Creek Water District improvement. And as you can see on the side, there's an implementation timeframe. So there are priority projects that are short-term, 1 to 3 years, medium-term, 3 to 5, and even long-term. And these are projects that that are anticipated, either they need a very long time to be completed, or they might just, they're priorities, but not time-wise, but still, they're important. So we had a workshop based on land use. And this is not zoning, this is just kind of seeing what the community would like, what sort of uses you would like to see in each sort of hamlet or community center. So this is Weavertown, and the left-hand side is the zoning. But on the right-hand side is what came out of the public workshop. And we asked everyone to look at maps of these hamlet areas and then say, what types of things would you like to see here, regardless of what's here right now, regardless of what the zoning code says. And you can see on this left, we have some, we have some medium density residential in the blue. Orange represents hamlet mixed use, so that's still housing with some small support businesses there. And we also have red, which is commercial use. And you can see indicated right at the crossroads there, a gateway area. So this is, there is no policy or there's no land use changes happening with the comprehensive plan, but this is here to kind of guide that process in the future. So if you were looking at, say Weavertown, you said, we're thinking about making a zoning change. Are there places where the desired land use is not compatible with the existing regulations? And that would sort of guide the first steps in changing your zoning. Okay, so we planned. Now what? At the end of the document is this very long implementation matrix that is split up by goals and the indicated priorities. And each project has partners for implementation, potential funding sources, and that implementation timeline. So these are kind of your important starts for implementing projects. We've all heard that phrase, don't let a plan sit on the shelf. And your implementation matrix and identifying those partners are really important elements of not letting that plan sit on the shelf. So we want to identify the who. This plan does recommend creating a standing implementation committee, or if you have an existing committee within the town that makes sense. These are your people who will be looking at this implementation matrix annually, seeing what can be done, what needs to be done, what has been done, and adding to it if necessary. We also want to identify those local partnerships and technical resources. These are people like us, the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board, Warren County Planning, and others who can support you in kind of mapping out how to achieve this vision. Prioritize recommendations. That's kind of already been done, but it can be done annually as needs change and the surrounding funding environment changes. But also get those low-hanging fruits. There might be things that are not necessarily priorities, but they have been identified and a funding source comes up, and you can implement it in 6 months. Go for it. And most importantly, celebrate those wins. Even the littlest thing, it's really important to say we did this because of the comprehensive plan, and we're going to keep moving forward. Because your town board, your zone, your committees, your boards don't get enough credit for all the work we're doing in the community. So we need to celebrate those wins when we can. And you will find, town board members, you have these printed out, but Sam's going to talk about 2 of the project profiles that were developed, which will kind of set you on your path for implementing some of these recommendations.
Yeah, so we developed a couple of project profiles for a handful of the strategy or the recommendations from that implementation matrix. These represent kind of key initiatives, those low-hanging fruit. They're also a way to show what has worked in other communities, as well as to show the work that has already been done here in Johnsburg. So wayfinding is a coordinated system of signage and mapping that is placed around town and lets users, be it residents or visitors, find their way. This can highlight parks, this can highlight trails, historical sites, other cultural assets, excuse me. So, like I said, enhanced signage can highlight key attractions such as how to get to Gore Mountain, the Ski Bowl Park, bring you to the Mill Creek Recreation Area, the Riverfront Park. It can highlight North Creek Business District. So there's all sorts of things you can do. And this is already kind of being done. And the Johnsburg has, they can use that to then put the branding and marketing on signage and place them around town, and poof, we have one strategy or one recommendation out of the comprehensive plan completed. Another project profile is promoting the establishment of a North Creek Arts District that enhances the community anchors like Tannery Pond, Community Center, local galleries, artists, and artisans. So art districts have been used in other places throughout, not only here in the region, but throughout the country as a way to promote downtown revitalization. It attracts visitors, it supports the local artists and artisans of the community, and other cultural groups and cultural facilities. So strong foundations already exist here in Johnsburg. Obviously, the Tannery Pond Center. You have everything that's going on, the museum, North Creek Depot Museum, and everything else that's going on in Riverfront Park. You already have some public art assets, such as the mural here in North Creek. So things are already happening. Just needs a little push, right? So this can be done with a DIY approach, essentially, broken out into identify, engage, and formalize. And this is where you create a grassroots effort. This requires very little need of the town and the town board. This can be a grassroots effort of the community to gather your stakeholders, to create a vision for what you want this district to be, and then finally formalize it and make it, do, again, branding and marketing to attract people here to North Creek and Johnsburg as a whole. And Allison will go over the next steps and what the actions from the town board are needed.
All right, thank you. So, let's see. So the plan is now publicly available. I'll show you, we'll have a link to the website at the end of this presentation, as well, and printed copies are available at Town Hall, and they will be at the library as soon as we can. This plan also will be reviewed by Warren County Planning. It's just a formal process to ensure it's not conflicting with any existing county or other municipal plans. 2 public hearings will be held, as I mentioned before. The Comprehensive Plan Committee will hold on here on April 2nd. The town board public hearing has yet to be scheduled, but we'll hope to get that soon. After each public hearing, comments will be incorporated before the plan is finalized. When that plan is finalized, we'll come back, the board will return to adopt the plan. This plan also does need to go through the State Environmental Quality Review Act process. In your packets tonight, board members, I did include the full, the part 1 of the form that needs to be filled out. With your permission, I would like to send a notice to declare lead agency to people who might be to the relevant parties this week, so we can get that. The town board is the most, because you will be adopting, you are the most likely board to be lead agency in the process. And then at the end of the process, we anticipate a negative declaration of environmental impacts and adoption of the comprehensive plan. So we'll have a timeline of how we need to do all these things. It's kind of we're getting to the end of the process. There's a lot of now it's just kind of the legal process to get it through adoption. And then implement. And I did want to really drive home the partnership part of this whole thing. There are 100 recommendations. They're not all for the town board to lead and implement, or the town in general. It is really, they are projects that need to be supported by the town, but there are a lot of community members and community organizations that can carry this torch and want to, frankly. So just I want to really remind you of that, because it probably can feel a little overwhelming looking at that chart. So here is that's the QR code to the project website, my email address for any of the public's written comments, and again that April 2nd date. With that, that's my conclusion. If the board has any questions, and this is all of mine, Sam's, and Ashley's contact information.
Thank you, Alex. And that link is on the town website too.
Oh, it is, perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. And there will be, the notice has been sent to the paper for the April 2nd public workshop, so you'll be seeing that in the CoStar and the Sun as well, as a reminder. Are there any questions from the board?
Comment, I know that we looked at, actually, planning, Warren County Planning looked at and did write a grant for zoning last year, and it's gonna be rewritten again this year, which obviously will tie into this. And if I recall correctly, our current zoning laws date back to 2007, so they're definitely in need of some changes.
Great. Yeah, now having this adopted plan will help, because this program is the same program that funds those zoning updates, so they like to work hand in hand with each other.
Now with this, is it New York Forward is the granting you can apply for? It's a big one, but
The New York Forward works for us more than
what's the
other
other?
ones because we're a little bit smaller.
Yeah,
And we can actually start that process even before we adopt it.
oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
And because we have most of the work done through the comprehensive plan, we can skip a lot of the work that you would have to do if you were starting from scratch, which is
Yes.
very nice.
That New York Forward application project is almost like a mini comprehensive plan. So since there is one that's so, obviously it's right, it's very timely. You can use most of this for that process.
And the timing with the sewer and all of that, looking at it is really perfect, you know. When we start to do that sort of stuff, how can we align it with those grants, I think will be really, really important.
Mm-hmm, yep. Yeah, and New York Forward does ask for a mix of public and private projects, and there are a good mix in this grant, but that doesn't mean, or in this plan, you can include other projects as well, of course.
All right.
Well, let's see, my request is that the board consider to hold their public hearing at the regularly scheduled meeting on May 6th. And then that would be also the time to conduct seeker. And then I believe the next meeting is May 20th.
Will be our public workshop, this guys.
The
Public
public hearing,
Public hearing.
Yes.
No, those are public hearing.
Okay,
that's your, yeah, the dates are on that.
okay.
Yeah, and then we can adopt the plan. I believe your next meeting is May 20th, but whatever the fall, yeah. So then that is our proposed timeline. Okay, you can consider. And if you'd like to, that will work, I think, to get the notice into the papers will be, I think, next week or the week after. So I'll work with you on that one.
When we need to hear back from us, to get that to newspaper.
Public hearing is, oh God.
We have an April 1st meeting, so
Right.
before yours, so we can set our public hearing for that May 6th meeting.
The only consideration I request is that the way the papers work. You need like,
We found that out.
yes.
We
So
found
for,
that
I
out
know for
first.
the,
Yeah, we know.
April 2nd meeting, I had to have it in last Friday. It
Yes.
was like 18 days, was it?
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's 18 days before you need it in the paper, and you need it in the paper 10 days before the hearing. So if you are able to maybe establish that your meeting tonight would be helpful, but.
Okay.
Okay, so in that packet, you do have those important dates and sort of the next steps that need to be completed. We also have some draft resolutions with the resolution of the seeker lead agency, and we have the draft resolution to adopt the plan. I've also included the part 1 of the seeker form for your review.
When do we need to do the seeker?
That can be done at the
April
the
6th?
May 6th.
The May 6th, okay.
And I think that's all. Great, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Cedarwood Water Project.
I think we should thank.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
He's down
He's a real SOB. Hey, Brett, how you doing?
The screen, guys.
Gets the wind right out of my sails.
Due to room constraints. No, I know I can.
That's okay.
We scrap them, I think we get it now.
But I thought you were supposed to like 20. Appreciate it. Yes, we want a disco effect.
Nice, Bo.
Yeah, thanks.
Everybody's got to be a comedian.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nick Vandal. I'm with Cedarwood Engineering. So I'm one of the project engineers there, and I was one of the project engineers for phase 1 of the water project. I was here 2 weeks ago to present about changes to the water regulations that were implemented by the board. And I'd like to thank Ashley and Sam for their presentation about the comprehensive plan. This does tie in as one of those elements to the comprehensive plan. It's, revitalizing the water infrastructure and then doing improvements, being proactive, and using grant money to the fullest. All right, so the project is currently ongoing. Phase 1 was completed last year. Phase 1 incorporated 3 elements. There was over a mile of water main on Main Street on that side of the bridge, all the way to the intersection 28. Booster station upgrades, and then there was a replacement of the south water tank. So for this phase 2 that we'll be talking about, there's different elements that are included in that. There's the Peaceful Valley Road replacement of a 2-inch galvanized line. There's a proposed well 6 loop, a flat loop, another loop for East Holcomb, and then also emergency power hookups for the wells and controls upgrades. Here is just a picture kind of showing North Creek and the water district, identifying the areas that need or are proposed to have improvements under the current engineering report and grant funding. Right down here is the south tank. That was done phase 1, as well as from right here to here on here to here on Main Street. And then right here, there's booster controls. That's because your district has 2 separate pressure zones. So there's kind of one where most of the hamlet is, and then there's one on the upper side of Main Street. So project financing. So back in, I believe it was 2019, it went through the bond resolution process, and North Creek was awarded, the water district was awarded a grant. There's a WIA grant, it's through NYS EFC, and what that is they give you 60% grant, so 60% of the overall project cost is covered to the amount that, was forecasted. So the maximum grant received for this project was $3 million. With that, the 6%, there's a 40% local match. That local match is being used, or is using New York State Drinking Water State Revolving Fund financing. And it's right now it's in a short-term loan, and it'll go over into a long-term loan. It's a standard market rate interest loan. Luckily for the hamlet, North Creek was able to get 1/3 of that interest subsidized. So the remaining budget, or the remaining local match, is $2.325 million, and again, that's going to be through a deed of SRF loan. So I just wanted to go over some of the things with phase 1 complete. It's kind of really hard to see here, but this is the old south tank. Right next to it's the new south tank. The old south tank is since gone. It's hard to see in this picture, but by the time the new tank was up, there were 4 holes spewing water out of the old south tank, and actually 2 of them had been new throughout construction. So there's one that we patched, and then 2 new little holes came about. So it's about time for that to be replaced. So it's good that it was proactive. We actually worked with other municipalities who had a project like this going, and then their tank collapsed just before the project happened. So it's a good proactive effort, and now the new tank is there and the old one demolished. Another portion of this was the booster station upgrades. So with that, basically it allowed for controls to be implemented in that portion of the district. There was a cellular dialer installed, so basically anytime there's issues with the pumps, or when they kick on or off, or however the system is set up, the water operator can be notified. And then in case of emergency or power outage, they can be notified of that on their phone and respond more promptly. Right now, those that operator integration is only available at the booster station, but today we're going to talk about how it also could be linked to the wells and other portions of the system as part of controls upgrades for phase 2. And the other portion of the project that was done was the Main Street water replacement. So again, that was over a mile of water main. I think you guys probably remember it 2 years ago when they were excavating all up and down by the school. And then of course we coordinated with the county so that project was done before the county came in and finished paving the road. So this way the road only had to be fixed once and be more of a temporary issue and save money. So now phase 2 is basically kind of pending right now, and this is what we're trying to present on tonight and get kind of a path forward. So with phase 2, I just wanted to go over this whole process was presented to the community back in 2019 through the bond resolution. So the whole formal process has already been done with public input and hearing, and the whole project has been approved. But at the request of the board, before phase 2 commences, there's an amount of debt service that is anticipated because of phase 1 of the project. And phase 2 would slightly increase that debt service. So they wanted to also give a presentation as to what those other outlining elements were, and to get a little bit of community engagement before proceeding with the second portion of the project. So in ranking from highest priority to least priority, well emergency power upgrades and controls is probably the highest priority of the phase 2 elements. It's estimated to be about $125,000 for that element of the project. And what that is that'll allow for telemetry to be updated from the middle tank down to the wells, and also allow for that alarming, if anything is wrong, to be given to the water operator on their cell phone or call them. And then the other portion is that it'll have automatic transfer switches on each of the wells. And so if power goes out, part of phase 1 of the project had a generator purchase that was able to be hooked up with quick connects to the booster station. That would be installed, that type of apparatus at each of the wells. So if any power was outage occurred at one of those wells, the generator could be moved there and quickly connected to restore power to that and keep the system functioning. And again, with that, the operator would be notified that there was a power outage on their cell phone because they also have the controls. And then there'd also be fixing old mercury switches, controls that kind of run the system, tell wells when they should kind of trigger on and off on the middle tank, because that's how the filling is set up on the side of the system. There's also the Keyslow Valley Road. That's an estimated $678,000. So what that is there is roughly half a mile of 2-inch galvanized line currently, and we suspect high tuberculation due to some of the flow issues that have been reported on that portion of the line. These are things that, that's just going to keep getting worse to it automatically, has a leak or, needs a replacement, which would entail an emergency repair. So it's more of a be proactive with an unknown line in the ground, fix it, and also allow it to be upsized to have proper pressures, which is because there's a lot of head that goes through going through that line that's heavily tuberculated and you just lose a lot in pressure, as well as allowing for a better flow in case of other emergency events. The well number 6 loop, that basically, I have to go back to show you. Your water system, there's 3 wells over here, and they go down and then they feed the entirety of the system. What this proposal is to make it so there's a second source to the main distribution system from the well. So a second transmission from the source to the distribution system. Right now, there's only one pathway. It's a fairly good pathway. There's really not that many issues. This is to give redundancy to your entire system because all of your sources in one place, unlike some municipalities which have multiple scattered around. So if anything were to ever happen to this transmission main in use main that goes to the main distribution system, that would need to be repaired and the whole system would be down. This is giving another avenue. It's redundancy essentially. And again, that one is estimated $578,000. And then there's 2 loops proposed. There's East Holcomb to Rich Loop and the Flats Loop. I'll just show you. They're right here and right here. And basically what that is there's different dead ends in the water system. It's just connecting them. DOH really likes it when we have water systems connected and looped. It's really good for when you have any type of emergency situation, you can valve off and not shut off a whole leg of the loop. You can kind of isolate better. And it allows for better water quality because the water, it goes both ways and you don't need to flush the line. There's not a dead end. Sometimes when we have dead ends and we flush a hydrant there, you see the water is very murky, and that's why hydrants need to be flushed a lot, especially on dead ends. This helps with that. Throughout the year, obviously hydrants should be flushed, but it helps with water quality too. Okay, and then the debt service to a residential user. So this is the typical, the way the water rates are structured. Basically, the commercial and municipal connection fee would be doubled. I know I spoke a little bit about last time I was here too, I think a month ago now, the increase in water rates for the usage dependent side. So this is the non-usage dependent side. This is the portion, this is for the recommendation of AWA standards. There's a portion of your fee that is covered based on being able to be a part of the water district that funds capital improvement projects. So right now, the current fee for the connection fee is $50. With the debt service that is going to be incurred with phase 1, which has been completed, the estimated increase or the estimated Total connection fee will be $100, so it's a $50 increase. Again, that isn't right away, but once that service needs to start being paid back, there will be some type of increase that needs to be made to pay that payment. This is an estimated one because we were given the full breakdown of the entire project from the funding agency. So, but it's pretty accurate. But the entire schedule of repayment was given for the entire project. So that's that whole $5.325 million project, which incorporates phase 1 and phase 2. So the connection fee there would move up to $175, which is a net increase of $125 from where it's at now. So obviously doing phase 2 in addition to phase 1 is a net increase. I know you've seen the tank was failing and obviously that had to be done, right? So these things that we've outlined, why do they have to be done? How pressing are they? So there's a couple of things that I just want to talk about, and that's reasons to pursue phase 2 funding. Right now there's 60% grant that's been awarded. These WIA grants are getting much more competitive. So to get another one might be hard in the future, whereas the town already has it. So if phase 2 is not pursued, funding would be rejected. That grant amount, that share that is being given that doesn't have to be paid back will be adjusted downwards if only phase 1 is done. So that'll be adjusted from a $3 million award to a $1.8 million award. Right now, not all of that money has been dispersed, so there's not like you have to pay it back or anything. But you're falling shy of hitting your max potential by 1.2 million of money given to you, which will be used to fund these specific ones that are outlined in the engineering report. Another thing is that the interest right now is subsidized. A third of the interest payment is subsidized. So if you were doing a repair in general, right, and you have to pay it back over X amount of years, the only the benefit to doing something as you go and not in the future, so you don't have to pay interest. This kind of helps out with that, in that you don't really have you don't have as much of an interest payment. A third of that is subsidized by the state. Also, the water mains that were identified, especially the Peaceful Valley one, those will require replacement in the future. Costs keep going up. You're locking at the current cost of whatever project we when you bid. We've seen construction materials continue to rise. Labor and everything associated with putting in water main, the prices keep going up, so to do it now may be more beneficial. And it's heavily tuberculated. Being proactive with this stuff is a lot more cost effective than being reactive. When I say reactive, I mean you have a water main break in the middle of the road and I have to emergency dig it up, repair it, then you have one go down, and then you talk and say, okay, now we need to replace the whole line. And now since the last 5 years costs have increased. So there's a lot going for the project for phase 2 that, was all a benefit to move forward, especially with all the grant funding that has been awarded. You're giving up $1.2 million. But as it turned out, there is some debt service increase in the short term, but ultimately that will happen in the long term too, once you need to do these repairs. And then it also just assures additional system reliability during emergency events. They said emergency generator power and being able to hook it up efficiently and effectively at each one of your wells is a priority for the system, as well as having the water operator easily notified and quickly notified when something is wrong with the water system so they can get on it, versus somebody calls once there's a problem that happens and then it takes a minute before the message gets relayed as effectively as if their phone buzzes and says we're out of power at well 4, and they know to come and call somebody and get the generator over there and hook up quickly. I also kind of included a tentative schedule. I say tentative because this is our estimate, right? If approval to commence would be tonight in March. Design, I'm estimating there's not too many elements, about 3 months. This may be held up. We have NWB requirements we'd have to hit with design phase, as well as there might be some geotechnical investigation that needs to be done for elements of the project. And then permitting, of course, takes a little while there. So bid phase October, November 2025, award December, and then probably hit for the construction season, which would be April to June 2026 as an early construction season projects. One caveat too is that the projects could be split with contracts. So this way, the electrical upgrades, controls that I referred to and the generators, those could be done quicker and kind of expedited to be done this construction season before the end of the year. Just so this way, by next winter, all the emergency power is already in place and so are the controls. Just give me another year with that. So, that's my presentation. Mental and lights. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I have two questions. Are there other potential grant sources that could supplement the grants that we've been awarded?
Yeah, there's some other potential sources. We do a lot with community development block grants for water. There's we've used rural development in the past. There's a couple of different ones. Really, WIA is kind of the best grant funding for water projects. The Water Infrastructure Improvement Act is the name of the grant. And right now you actually have been awarded the grant funding, so you're already given 6% and I'm missing something.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm Jonathan Sukup with Cedarwood Engineering as well. So when the possibility for additional grant awards with this, it's basically diminishing returns at this point because you were already awarded the maximum that you can receive with Environmental Facilities Corporation with 60% grant. So anything additional that you apply to this, your grant can be adjusted downward. So it's a little tricky. We basically have one of the best case scenarios to move forward with a combination of 60% grant and a 1/3 subsidy interest rate loan on top of it. The only thing better would be obviously a 0% interest loan, which you don't qualify for hardship. And I don't know if it was explained, the 1/3 interest subsidy basically means that 1/3 of that loan is interest free, and then you only have a interest, I think is it standard market rate?
Yeah.
Standard market rate interest on the remaining 2/3 of that loan.
So the answer is no, there's no other grants that could supplement.
There's other grants you could supplement, but grant award from WIA would be adjusted downward.
Dollar for dollar?
It's tricky. The way they typically do it is they look at it and they'll subtract it out of the total, essentially. So you're gonna be adjusted downwards from your only receive up to 60% of eligible funds. If you get another grant for say 500,000, that's subtracted out of your grant funds for EFC. So, and then you also have, I would say that it's not a good fit. If you're adding scope to these items, then it could be a fit. The one thing I want to bring up too, Nick did a very good job on the presentation. Just the items that we had in the initial report, obviously with the time that has passed, we don't feel that we can undertake all of them within the current budget. So we are going to work, with the town and, if we need to come to additional public meetings, we're happy to scope them and get updated construction costs for them. That's not to say they can't be designed and move forward and included as a bid alternate in case we get better than expected bid pricing. I just wanted to bring that up too.
And the second question I have is, you have the residential costs to the debt service up there?
Yep.
Is it the same or different for commercial and for commercial?
Double for commercial and municipal.
So everything doubles, so commercial's currently paying 100, going to 200, and eventually going to an additional 150 on top of that?
Correct.
That's a lot of money.
That's for the
our town.
current structure, yeah.
Well, and why is commercial higher than residential?
That's typical recommendation with the AWWA standard. So commercial and municipal are recommended to double fee versus the residential.
Right, but I'm asking why? Is it assumed that they use twice as much water?
No, it's just assumed that they're, I know it's for one of their standards, but then also it's just assumed that the burden to a commercial facility, based on how, it's kind of based on water use, but also the burden to them impacts less for residential.
In other words, businesses make more money, therefore they can pay more. Is that what you're saying?
That's kind of
Haven't
weird.
seen our town.
You guys, it's not-
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Jonathan, I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
You're gonna put automatic transfer switches on
Manual.
the well, manual.
So part of it
Yep.
is for a capital cost saving, what was done is the water district had an old diesel mobile generator. So part of this project was to replace that and modernize it. So I think it's a roughly 50 kW Kohler diesel generator, that recently underwent the startup, size to handle the pumps at the booster station, and then also the well pumps, as also the 3 well houses. So the plan with that would be put in manual transfer switches, which is essentially just a large disconnect that would come out with cam lock connections for that generator.
Okay, so we're gonna have to move the generator around to the
So-
individual pumps and
so-
wells?
It is providing the opportunity to do that on an as-needed basis. You're fortunate in the way that the system is set up that when there's a power outage historically, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I only know what I've been informed by, Charlie and others, but essentially, you have these large storage tanks. So there's a mercury control switch that controls your lower pressure zone, which are your wells that feed the entire system. So that switch has a conservative set point, a couple feet between it from your wells on and wells off. And you have 2 tanks. I think they're both around 100,000 gallons each for your middle tank that's up behind Beck's and your north tank, which feed the lower pressure system. So they're each 100,000 gallons. With current demands, that gives you quite a large buffer, probably under normal demand commission or normal demand situations, 2-3 days before you're gonna deplete your source. So as long as your power outages are under that, you don't necessarily have to have an emergency reaction to go turn the wells on. If you have a catastrophic situation where you have a water main break, you're losing a ton of water and a power outage, which can absolutely happen, that's when you want to get it there and get it there quick. So that's the reason that we went with the replacement with the mobile diesel generator versus individual generator connections at each well facility, because it would have been, I have the numbers and I can send it to the board. I don't have it with me tonight, but we did an initial estimation of around 3 times the cost to do it, to be pad ready, put the generators in, run the conduits over to each well house with automatic transfer switches to each.
Okay.
Jim?
Yeah.
The Department of Public Property and Programs has also been looped in on the generator. We've been moving, we've agreed to help
Okay.
move, make sure that it's filled. We also built a pole barn to house and protect it from the elements, to make sure that it's plugged in at all times and ready to go. Definitely something that we can assist with. What I think I heard when we did the initial meeting with Kohler was that there might even be an opportunity here to add the same types of quick connections to, say, the highway department, other buildings, town properties, so that, again, in the case of an emergency, if we needed to set up some sort of a shelter, needed emergency power, that this generator could be used in other ways
Absolutely.
besides the well houses,
Yeah.
which is my stake as the buildings.
Absolutely. And, fortunately, we have it. It's sized enough where it can handle, and I think we size it so both of the worst case scenario of if you had to run both booster pumps, which is your largest horsepower requirement, I think we were around a 50 kW, it can do so. It's sized for 208 volt 3-phase, but on the alternator itself, you can do single phase, you can do 120, you can do 240 volt. It's essentially, it's a very nice generator. So other scenarios, as applied, you are able to do so, and that is an opportunity. Obviously, we can't pay for things like that out of the water district in this project, but if you do the standard cam lock connections as part of this phase 1 of the WIA project, I think we have roughly 50 or 60 foot of the coiled up cables, and they're individual, and they're similar to like a welding cable. They're flexible, they're not unbearable, they're heavy. You carry one at a time, but it is a good setup.
Was there any thought, I'm not sure how far up Peaceful Valley Road you go, but was there any thought of looping into the Durkin line and creating a loop up there?
Yeah. So we actually talked about that today. So this presentation is not the end all be all. Obviously, if it's selected to move forward, whether it's tonight or in the future or not, I mean, we want to do what's in the best interest of the water district. So if there's complaints we're unaware of, if there's
pieces of projects that we're unaware of that should be prioritized on top of this, you have the opportunity to make those changes, and we've done it in the past. Essentially, what's required from a funding standpoint is, we'd want to work within the existing budget and utilize the money as best we can to get through the project. But you can, say you wanted to do a loop, it gets a little trickier because you're looping in your upper pressure zone, which is fed by your south tank, which is a lot higher pressure zone with your lower.
Gotcha.
It doesn't mean it's not doable, but you're gonna eat up a significant portion of the budget doing so, because what you're gonna have to put in place is a buried vault that's gonna be considerably large, and you're gonna have pressure reducing valves in it. Usually, we do at minimum 2, usually a larger one to handle your fire flow demands, and then a smaller one to handle your domestic flow demands. And then there is maintenance on them and O&M, and you have to watch them, because if any one of those were to fail, you're gonna start blowing out people's basements. So it's, I would say higher risk. But I mean, we've talked about it considerably, because one of the good points of doing that is the area out with like top ridge and everything, you don't have great turnover, seasonal, and that would definitely improve. So it's not a bad idea, it's just, it takes some thought.
And then, I guess the last question I have is for Fred. Didn't we just pave quite a bit of that area in the flats? No, in the flats where they're proposing the 2 loops.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
So, as far as priority goes, and Nick, feel free to correct me because you're more aware with the current budget, which there's things we still have to do. So if we're allowed to progress with design, part of this is we want to meet MWBE requirements with Minority Women Business Enterprise. So to try to hit some of that on the front end, and also because we have a good working relationship with them, we'll hire somebody like ATL that's a certified WBE to do the geotechnical subsurface borings. Number one, because this was a conceptual level report early on, scoped with prior administration and working with, the prior water operator as well. So if we run into things like rock and other things, that's going to eat into the budget that might not be fully accounted for. So that's one of the larger pieces we do. And then we want to prioritize, which we'll work with, the town board and any public input that's received. If there's additional complaints, or you would like to see some of these priorities shifted, because they were prioritized in this manner previously. And the way, I think you brought it up, Nick, was priority 1 with what's remaining is basically controls and upgrades for the well houses with the manual transfer switches. Priority 2 was Peaceful Valley Road, because again, it was reported to us that there are flow and pressure issues with tuberculation with a 2-inch galvanized line. And then well number 6 loop, obviously to provide a redundant, pathway if there ever is a catastrophic issue where you have another area to feed your well source into the system. The remaining loops, I hate to say it as a lower priority item, but that's what they were, because there's ways, in a perfect world, you would have no dead ends in a water system. You do. Every system does. There's O&M that can be done, usually the water operator twice a year, and if sometimes even more on specific zones where you have water quality complaints and you don't get great turnover, you're going to go out, you're going to open hydrants, and you're going to manually flush. There's things you can do like that. There's also things you can look at that are maybe a little less capital cost, such as automatic flushing hydrants, which again, you have to be careful because that's again an intentional waste of water. But there's things you can do in that manner. With what's remaining with the budget, which I think is like $2 million, roughly. I don't even know if we'd be able to get to the East Holcomb, the Ridge Loop, or the Flats Loop.
Okay.
With where we're currently at.
So when are people in the water district gonna see the increase in phase 2? When is that gonna?
So the debt service schedule repayment is already made available. Right now it's in short-term financing. So the water district this year is the first year it's paying on the debt service, I believe. But the first 2 or 3 payments are much lower, because you're in short-term financing. I believe the name, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first full payments in 2017, or not, 2027?
I think so, because they're pushing, it got pushed out from the original cycle, which
Yeah,
was 2026.
Okay.
so 2027 would be, and then you'd want to start, that's when your payments start being made. You'd want to start collecting that water rent one cycle before. And these are annual increases given, or annual rates given rather. You're billed biannually, so twice a year.
The 2-inch line on Peaceful Valley Road, the 2-inch extension, has there been any deliberation on being able to change the size of that line to provide fire control?
That's,
And would there be any other funding for that fire control other than just for the municipal water?
part of our
Anymore.
initial scoping was to upsize it for the minimum requirement to meet fire flow at 6 inches and add hydrants to the line. So that was part of what is proposed within this.
It's not, it will be an addendum for a 6-inch line or?
No, so that's one of the upper priorities, I'd say priority 2 on our list, outside of the well control. So it would be upsized from 2-inch to a new 6-inch line, so that it'd be suitable for fire flow, for residential fire flow. If there's, commercial facilities that require more flow, then obviously it may have to, we'd have to do additional testing, hydrant testing, and see what it would, if we'd have to bump to an 8. But as part of the initial scope, it was 6-inch line and add in fire hydrants.
That does feed, I believe, what we used to call the unit gore,
Yes,
which
Yeah.
there are 2 or 3 substantial buildings over in that
Yeah.
neighborhood, which would be well suited and probably benefit from insurance reductions if those happen.
absolutely. I mean, all we have, like I said, I don't have the exact flow and pressure issues. It was just reported to us that there were some out there with that 2-inch line, which obviously, makes sense with the galvanized line with tuberculation. It basically reduces your inner diameter over time, and 2 inches is not suitable. You're not going to get any sort of decent flow out of it. So we would look into doing that. And as part of moving forward, if we're authorized to move it forward in design, we would do a hydrant test where it transitions. I think it's like 6 or 8-inch, whether it's cast or ductile, where that 2-inch ties in, crosses the road, and then runs up to the dead end. We would do another hydrant test there and do that verification as we get into the design phase.
Does the fire district share the cost of the fire hydrants and the upsizing to a fire code?
Not to, that would be under the water district. Everything for this, for capital costs would be under the water district, to my knowledge. I'm not aware of fire district coming into play with this.
Shouldn't it, if it's, are you putting in new hydrants?
That's not in my experience, but yeah, typically it's falls all under the water district.
And annually, they pay $3,500 specific to the fire hydrants in addition to their regular water.
Okay. Any other questions?
Please say there's no phase 3.
Oh, no, so this is not the end all be all. When it was initially scoped, we worked, like I said, with the prior administration and the water operator at the time of getting fed the issues that were known of the system. You obviously have, every system has aging infrastructure and there's wish list items. So part of this with the remaining budget is to prioritize the remaining projects and do what we can with what's in the best interest of the water district. We want to see the money go towards, the most important repairs, to fix any issues that are currently out there. I mean, the system, part of the whole controls thing is, I don't think there's any real alarming or notification other than the modern items we just put on the booster station as part of the phase 1 project. So it would be very important to help, alarm out to, the water operator to get out there for an emergency instead of getting a phone call from a resident stating that they don't have water, or they don't have pressure. We can, get some of these alarming capabilities and trending and the information, to kind of modernize the system, and no current plans as far as I know for phase 3.
There's that.
No, it's. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks.
it. Yeah, you can.
I did, I just did.
Yeah. So the next item is a presentation from ORDA. Over the last 3-4 weeks, is we have been moving our sewer system forward and getting everything out to bids. We've been in discussions with ORDA to address the need to get their lodge open when it's complete. We've been able to do some engineering talk back and forth. We're in the process of forming a 3-way MOU. In short, what they're going to show today is conceptually everything that the three parties, the town, ORDA, and Front Street, have agreed to on a temporary basis so that their lodge can open in September. In our rules and regulations that we haven't adopted yet, but we have got a rough draft of, there is a provision where there is the potential to require pretreatment of additional users that come in. One of the limiting factors on the sewer system that we have is our ammonia limits at our discharge site. So pretreatment is a way to remove some of those ammonia limits and be able to add users. That just so happens to be something that could be put in that would allow ORDA to open their lodge on time with a temporary discharge to the Front Street system that the Joe Minder currently empties into. So in short, and ORDA's going to kind of present they've got the engineered some diagrams to present to the board. But in short, we're working on a 3-way MOU that will allow ORDA to put in a pretreatment set of tanks in place of the septic tanks that are in front of Joe Minder Lodge now. Once our sewer system goes online, those tanks would become redundant anyways and would most likely just remain buried in the ground. So their pretreatment would go where those tanks are. It would remove all of the nitrogen, allowing that then to be accepted by Front Street. And in short, once the town system is up, in ORDA hooks into the town system, it would give the town system, in a sense, an expansion by taking that pretreatment system. Once the town's ready, ORDA the town will hook ORDA up to the town system, and that pretreatment then would be turned over to the town. We still have to work out that a little back and forth on the agreement, but conceptually, our engineers have looked at it, said, yeah, this is a really good thing. David Crickler's engineers from Front Street have looked at it and said, yes, this is possible. And ORDA is happy because what it does is two things. One, it allows them to open on time, and two, it takes the pressure and the timeline off of the town a little bit to allow us to get our system up and fully functional. So without further ado, I believe Kurt's here to present some plans for the board members to look at.
Can I hand a couple of papers out here?
Of course you can. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I have a little thumb drive.
Yeah, if you,
But no,
no thumb drive?
I have a thumb drive, but no computer. Can we plug it over there?
It's only recording YouTube to this computer.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Get the recorders in it. Got recorders in it?
No, it's not.
It's okay.
Been very, very strong.
Yes.
Everyone in front of them, they should announce who's on. Right up front.
That's pretty cute. It is. No.
When's your range of work?
Really? Well, you did play with Jackson.
Same here.
And she was like, my buddy's in her age, it's like.
Oh my God. Well, that's.
And also the
Nick, do you have one?
Yes.
Sorry, Nick.
Man down.
You good? Ready to go here. Gigantic thanks to Cedarwood for helping. So my name is Kirk Bassaret. I am the Director of Planning and Construction with the Olympic Authority. Jim, thanks for the introduction and the background here. So as Jim had alluded to here, we're rapidly marching towards construction completion on the Ski Bowl Lodge here. Our anticipated substantial completion date is on or about July 4th. Substantial completion sets occupancy of the building. Our final completion date is very soon thereafter, on or about Labor Day. And at that point, you know, all of the temporary fencing comes down, contractors pull off site. We're entirely done and open to the public at that point. So yes, understanding that, you know, the town just gave award on the municipal wastewater treatment system here within the last week, Jim, Kevin?
10 days?
10 days. Yeah, 10 days ago. And there's, you know, approximately a year of construction to get to a place where the wastewater treatment plant is receiving wastewater for treatment and then discharged to North Creek. So, you know, there's a quote unquote dead time in there where our lodge is done. We're in theory ready to open. We need an interim solution here for wastewater treatment. So that's how we got to the table here today with significant conversation between the town, Front Street, Cedarwood, and the Olympic Authority here, putting any and all options on the table. What I'm going to walk through here is what we've settled on as a reasonable approach and acceptable solution to all parties. So with I've got three plans to quickly walk through. On the paper front here, it's obviously can't see much. The screen here, I'll zoom in a little bit so we can try to get a better idea of what we're looking at. But the first plan here is existing conditions of the ski bowl site. And very specifically, we're zoomed into the area in and around the Joe Minder Lodge. So existing conditions is plan 1. Plan 2 will be demolition or removals. And then the third plan is the proposed infrastructure, and that covers both what will be installed as part of the town project, and then what the Olympic Authority is proposing here as part of the pre-treatment system. So, good. So the building here that I'm mousing around on is the Joe Minder Lodge. The pavilion is just making a little sneak peek here on the the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Again, existing conditions here. So in front of the Joe Minder Lodge, we're focused on the wastewater portion here. So immediately in front of the Joe Minder, there's two septic tanks and a pump station. So there's a sanitary line that comes out of the pavilion, and Joe Minder ties into first septic tank, second septic tank, third tank is a pump station, and then there's a force main that runs through the middle of the ski bowl property, and that meanders down through and eventually ties into the Front Street system. Just for context, the obviously Ski Bowl Lodge is going to is off the page here, but sort of up on the middle of the screen here, top center. So again, second plan that we're showing is proposed demolition in preparation for the proposed new construction. So the red shows up okay here. So the red hatched area is that which we're proposing to remove. So as Jim had indicated, the two septic tanks and pump station that currently serve the pavilion and Joe Minder, those structures will be removed. A portion of the force main from the existing pump station up to discharging the Front Street will be removed. And then I failed to detail out here the existing sanitary sewer collection line manhole, and we have a dead-ended capped 8-inch PVC line here. This infrastructure was installed as part of the Ski Bowl Lodge project. And at the end of this cap, you'll see on the next page, there's two 6,000 gallon tanks side by side that we had coordinated with Cedarwood. The intent was for, at the end of that capped 8-inch line, when the town project came in, the town contractor would install the two 6,000 gallon tanks, pull the cap, and tie the lodge sewer into those two 6,000 gallon tanks. So let me skip to the proposed new construction. Here we have some nice pink and blue. The pink shows up a little bit better. I'll zoom in a little more on the blue here so everybody can see that again. Joe Minder, where the mouse is. So where the location of the two septic tanks and pump station had been on the front of the Joe Minder in the previous plan, we're proposing to replace those three structures with several new tanks here. Initially here, so what we're planning to do is tie in the Ski Bowl Lodge with the Joe Minder and Pavilion wastewater. So that would all combine and commingle here through the pre-treatment process that we're proposing. So the sanitary line that serves Joe Minder and Pavilion down at the bottom of the screen here would be extended to tie into the first tank that's part of this pre-treatment process. Again, the sanitary sewer that serves the new Ski Bowl Lodge will also tie into that first tank. This is a 3,000 gallon aerated pre-equalization tank. That's followed by two The brand name or proprietary equipment here is, it's called ChromaFlow. It's an aerated activated sludge treatment process that occurs in the next two tanks. At the conclusion of treatment here at that third tank, the treated wastewater then discharges from this last tank. It's pumped over to these two 6,000 gallon tanks in light blue that are part of our system. So these two tanks will immediately serve as equalization for the ski bowl, Joe Binder Pavilion discharge into the Front Street system. So the discharge from the second tank, which would serve as a pump station, would have a force main that enters a three-way valve vault, and hanging a left out of the valve vault, that heads over to the Front Street treatment system. And then the blue force main that passes directly through the valve vault is the force main as part of the town system. And you can see that hangs a right-hand turn here and follows Ski Bowl Lane, ultimately crosses 28, and comes down to the property behind the library. Just one other item of note here with this system, there's wastewater sludge that's created as more or less a byproduct of the process. So similar to pumping out a septic tank, the sludge has to be removed occasionally from the system. So as part of this system, there's a fourth tank. This is a 1,500 gallon aerated sludge holding tank. But again, as we can see here, the intent was to try to minimize the impact to the ski bowl property here in the park. To the very best of our ability, squeeze the new proposed infrastructure into a footprint that is already occupied by wastewater infrastructure or is in very close vicinity to that which will be installed by the town contractor. So again, the delineation here, the loose delineation between work that ORDA is proposing and would accomplish with our contractor is in pink, and the blue infrastructure is that which the town would install as part of the larger municipal system. Well, I think that's it. I say that's it. So the last quick thing here with this valve vault, this strategically located valve vault. This would serve as to change the discharge location from this pretreatment system. So again, we hang a left, we go to Front Street. When the town system is up operational, ready to take flow from the Ski Bowl Lodge, Joe Binder Pavilion, we simply throw a couple valves in that valve vault, and wastewater effluent is discharged to the town. Just to double down, I guess, a little bit on what Jim had indicated in regards to the pretreatment level here. So in theory, this system is robust enough where if it were installed as a standalone system, the effluent quality coming out of the system could be such that it could discharge to surface water. So we really are taking a tremendous amount of the contaminants, the organic, the loading out of the wastewater here before discharging to either Front Street or the town. Any questions?
Yeah, is that planned to be continued after the town system is hooked up to continue to discharge at that low level of, or that high a level of treatment?
Yeah, so
Okay.
with the agreement, the memorandum of understanding that Jim had touched on quickly, right, the goal here from all three parties, upon installation of this equipment, and commissioning of the larger town system, the Olympic Authority will, deed over the equipment to the town, so it would become part of the town system. So with that said, yes, that level of treatment will continue, it's intended to continue. And, again, as Jim had said, more or less buys a level of expansion to the system that Cedarwood is designed and is being installed here.
Thank you.
I have one, Kevin.
Can we-
Can we turn the lights on?
Yeah.
Nothing like more on right now, but.
Thank you.
I,
So the system in waste, you're putting it in now, but it is a benefit to us to have it. The system really works out for all of us, right? Yeah, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, so, right, with, initially with the connection to the Front Street system, Front Street has, in theory, somewhere around, call it 7,000 to 8,000 gallons of excess capacity in their existing system. But that's just a flow number, and so the loading is quite a bit different. So that's kind of what tipped the scales here, is installing this pretreatment system that treats with such a high level of effluent that we could, in theory, discharge to or connect to the Front Street system. So.
And then hooks up when we're ready.
And I just want to add just a couple of things. These conversations stemmed from the resolution that the board passed in January when we were still looking for funding for to be able to award our bids. So, initially that resolution was that the order could build a system on our footprint. But as we got our funding, that footprint for them to build something became much smaller. In the discussions continued to what what they're proposing today. It wouldn't be possible without Front Street saying, yes, on a temporary basis, we will take this. And again, it's going to augment the town system in the future. So, the town it's a win for the town, it's a win for Florida to be able to open on time. And again, from an engineering standpoint, everyone's gotten together and said, yeah, this can work. I also want to add that, the goal was to not disturb the area or make anything or put anything in the park that would deter. These are buried underground. They're going to have the same impact as the tanks that are currently there. So it'll be a manhole cover. Board has also agreed to remove the compressors that are between the Village Chair and the Joe Minder Lodge, those big square loud compressors. They've agreed to move those to help clean up that whole area as well. So, a lot of good momentum going on here, and thanks everyone for the patience in working through it. So, all parties, thank you.
You had Christina first, I think.
Can you speak to timeline, and impacts to town and other public use of the property? This is a very bad time of year to be thinking about doing this.
No, that's a great question. Right, so based on the pink infrastructure and the blue infrastructure here, there's two contractors that are working in, very close confines here. There's undoubtedly going to be different lead times and different schedules here with the town contractor and the Orta contractor. So, the devil will be in the details here with this plan. It's going to require continued coordination, nailing down the details and the schedule here on this. And to your point, especially with winter turning into spring, which will quickly turn into summer, and the Joe Bindren Pavilion, being occupied and used by the town, the park district, the youth program, there's going to be heavy use in those buildings. So by removing the existing wastewater treatment system for those buildings and installing a new system here, we need to be extremely cognizant of how exactly that's going to happen.
I mean, there's going to be a period of time where we don't have restroom facilities in the park. So we have a youth baseball and softball program that'll begin typically around April 1st, runs through June, which I imagine will be right in the middle of the construction time. We have public use, we have town use. And then, again, I heard you say that you're pushing to be sort of primarily, or whatever the term was you used, for your first phase of completion by the 4th of July. Clearly, our 4th of July celebration on July 6th, I mean, you stated it well. There's a lot of use going to come really quickly as the weather warms up.
Most certainly.
I appreciate that you can't give me all the answers now, but it's a scary thing.
And Pete, and that was a concern and a discussion point we brought up, and that's gonna take coordination with Cedarwood, the town, Orta, to make that switch quick when it happens.
Well, one thing that will make it quicker than most systems, these things come, they build them at the factory. These are buried tanks with the processes in them. So they do, it's gonna take time, coordination, like Kurt said, but they do come tested, factory acceptance test, they come installed. And I hate when people say plug and play, but it really is just setting these in, plumbing them, and, commissioning and turning on. So there is a savings there versus doing, I gotta pour a tank here, excavate this, wait for the equipment to come. It can be, when the stuff's arrived, it can be done quick. So quicker than most.
So is there a point person that can coordinate with Pete on that, so there's like a real communication on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not a good option.
Yes, no.
It sounds like you've reached a great agreement, conclusion. I think that's great. My one concern is that blue line that goes trotting across the road and over by the road that highway currently uses. And I'm thinking ahead to a future where perhaps we get some work done in the park and the sand pit gets reclaimed, et cetera. How much of a problem is that gonna be when that line goes across? How do we know where to build, how to bulldoze, stuff like that without harming? And when does that pipe go in? I guess that's the other question.
That's part of the test system. So that'll be
Right.
going in most likely this summer at some point.
This
And
summer.
then when any work is done, then that gets marked. There's a lot of buried infrastructure in the park right now.
Yes. So on the town system, any plastic pipeline that's gonna go in such as that will have tracer wire, so it'll have the ability to be located in the future accurately, so we know where things are.
Matt, did you have a comment or
I was
question?
just gonna say that I think, it was hard to see on the map, but I think Kirk was saying that and Jonathan would know, the proposed, waste is to follow the road, I think, right? The path for the waste going.
Yeah, so that blue
28.
line
Yeah.
more or less follows ski bowl lane
Yeah.
to 28.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't meander close enough to the sand pit to be impacted with the
Yeah, no, it
reclamation
shouldn't.
project coming.
I'm just concerned that that road may change a little bit, that's all. And that we have to be aware of that, that's all.
Jeff, go ahead.
Will that be trenched or bored?
There's a combination, so basically as we bid it, it's planned to be bored down the hill essentially to where the wastewater plant's gonna be located. Just because that's DOT right away and that was what was most economical from a permitting standpoint, but obviously it's gonna depend on what we encounter and we'll defer to the contractor. So if they mobilize with their drill rig and they wanna drill the rest of the way to minimize disturbance and it's economical to do so, we're gonna allow it.
So you can control the depth of that and
Yeah, so
keep her at ease.
Yes.
There's infrastructure that was recently installed that.
absolutely.
That is
So-
encumbering further development.
So anytime we get into that with directional drilling, what we typically require, and I believe WMJ Keller has the contract for the collection system, and we've worked with them in the past, so anytime before there's actually work being completed, you call in a dig safe, so any utilities that are marked out in the area are gonna be, spray painted or flagged in that area. And then what'll happen is if it's in a directional drill zone, what's required is they'll either pothole, test pit, with, I would say, gentle excavation, whether it's hand excavation or potholing, determine the size, the elevation of any utility that's gonna be crossed. That's not to say that certain things may not be marked out with a dig safe, because that happens during construction, but, we take all precautions that can be done. And then at that point, they drill, and then if it's drilling and not open trenching, on the end of it, they have, to a certain extent, you could steer drill rigs, both vertically and, horizontally, locationally to a certain extent. And then there's also the driller in their rig communicates closely with the locator that has the ability to sense locationally where that drill head is, because it doesn't always go to plan. If you hit a cobble or something like that, you can have a little deflection. They can either pull out or change their drill head and go through it if they encounter rock. And you can locationally determine where you are and determine the depth of it. And that'll all be located. They provide us boring logs essentially for anything that's drilled. That goes on as built that the contractor provides us at the end of the project. We take all that information, we put it on record drawings, on red lines that we provide to the town so that you have a good future record of any new construction.
And just for everyone that listened to that and are wondering what part he's talking about, that has nothing to do with this plan that Orta is presenting. That has to do with the town's plan and system to go from Ski Bowl Park underneath 28 to the processing facility. So that's what Jonathan was answering the question on.
So many moons ago, I looked at what I think was probably the first rendition of the sewer plan. My recollection was that it was going from the Ski Bowl Lodge to a pump station by the town shed, picking up Front Street and crossing 28 to the north, down to the main pump station in Riverfront Park and back up. Is the blue line that Kurt is talking about, is that to be, it doesn't sound like that's to be abandoned. Or am I off base with that? I thought it was all crossing 28 to the north.
That was an old initial map plan report, and during design, we found a more economical dependent where the plant was located to go the opposite direction.
Okay, so eventually the nursing home, Front Street, the town garage, Ski Bowl will all cross at the south side directly to the plant?
No, they all get collected on the north side, right? Thing goes under 28.
Yeah, they get collected,
They get
come
collected
across,
together under one line.
there's a T, so what's coming from what's proposed for the Orta facility will come down and connect into a T, and then it goes down and crosses 28 to the plant.
One crosses,
Yes,
yeah, one
and I apologize, we don't have a map here, but we can absolutely provide it, so that, put it on the town
It was
website.
confusing, I didn't know if it would be abandoned. but I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
Pete?
Will all the mitigations of the work of the contractor be part of the contract with the contractor? And has that been developed yet? Can you have a process for operating in a way that's consistent with the needs of the operating park right now. You need a mitigation plan for that.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, and, you know, stop me if I'm going down the wrong path here, but, so any of the work to remove the existing infrastructure from the Joe Mander Pavilion, removing the septic tanks and replacing with the proposed equipment, it will be.
I mean, the ongoing construction process will require a lot of timing issues day to day. And so that has to be built into the contract, so that there won't be a surprise with the contractor. Oh, this is what the contract says, I can do it. If it's all built into the contract, how he has to manage that construction project.
Absolutely.
That can be part of the contract.
Yeah, so if this is, if we're to pursue a bid here ultimately with our project, we're not gonna put that on the street until we get with the town, we get with Cedarwood. We iron out those very specific dates of, you know, the expectation for swap over, you know, how long we're impacting the
Well, when you
existing.
put, like Peter just brought up,
Yep,
I
yep,
mean, if he would be brought in to be part of that discussion.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to talk about that and understand that.
In your estimates of either flow or load, on the maximum use of the ski bowl, does the capacity of your building can absorb all of that? Say, for your maximum capacity of use in terms of people, whether it's summer or winter, does the system you're building have the capacity that, or do you test it against the maximum use of the ski bowl lot?
Yes.
You did.
Yep.
What's the time gap between the system that you're going to install and the system being installed?
So my guess is here that the lead time on our parts and pieces, our equipment components is gonna be a little bit more than the couple of septic tanks and panel and pumps that are gonna be installed as part of the town system, so but with the town just making an award to their contractor, you know, if we end up in a situation where we're able to use the existing contractor that we have on site, for example, we have our contractor at that point. If we're gonna bid this little project, that would be slightly different. But, you know, I would guess here, you know, lead time on
I
our.
think the question is when will the pretreatment be complete and when will the entire town system be complete?
Okay,
What's that gap? Is that the question?
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
That was good.
clarification. So, again, our substantial completion date, you know, starting the use fixtures in the lodge is on or about July 4. You know, I don't know that we're in a position as of yet where we fully understand where the contractor is landing with the town system
Yeah,
and when they're ready to
It's
start.
being worked on because, I mean, the town did a great job of doing the impossible, essentially procuring the additional funding that's needed to get this to move forward. So we did have a delay in the award, and there are some external funding sources that we need approval or concurrence from every step of the way. So we just recently awarded town contracts, so we're waiting on bonding, insurance, and agreements to come back, and we're reviewing and approving all those. Once we approve it and the town attorney, essentially, it goes back to the funding agency to, again, get their concurrence. Once they give us that, then we can move forward and schedule a pre-construction meeting with all parties. And then we can start to assemble, you know, they'll be providing submittals, lead time, scheduling, and we'll get individual schedules from each prime for each of the different contracts. Then we'll compile them together and put an overall timeline together. So as of right now, we don't have exact dates, but we're going to be progressing and pushing the contractors to have them here soon so we can coordinate.
Rough, I mean, if we're just throwing numbers out there, roughly, 6 months lag between construction of this system and you guys up and operational with the town system. 6 months is.
I say roughly depending how rough of a winter we have this coming year. Yeah, I mean, there's some factors, yeah.
The town system's gonna stretch with Main Street the town system will stretch into the 2026 construction season. So that's why there's a need to have a temporary system for Orta, so that they can open that lodge and we can get the economic benefit in the town, for that. So,
If there's a year gap in there, I don't know that anyone's gonna be surprised if it plays out that way.
No.
Kelly?
As much as I understand this stuff, okay, I think I got it. I think that we should say thank you to all the parties involved. I know this has been tough. It's been tough from Board's point of view, it's been tough from the town's point of view. And I think that we finally seem to have gotten to a point where we can move ahead, and that's wonderful. And thank you for coming around.
Speaking of Front Street, you said that was 1/3 of where water systems are gonna go, right? Or you're gonna be able to utilize. But you said it was temporary. Now, if they decide to change, are we gonna be able to do what we need?
If who decides to change, sorry, I'm
Front
not,
line.
Front Street.
Rather.
decides to change,
They no longer want to offer up their part of the system.
so with the three-party.
Yeah.
memorandum
The
of
new
understanding-
MOU basically covers all three entities.
Yes.
And everybody knows that knows the history is that we have heard many times about the MOU between Front Street and, I don't know, whomever else, but this basically will eliminate that MOU. This MOU will be viewed by all three parties and signed off on by all three parties. And so therefore, it will be binding.
Enforceable. Yes, it will be.
That's. All right. All right, you want, this Jean, you want a time? For, yes, all right, calling the regular meeting to order at 8:03. Let's see, first on the agenda is the. Not the. All right. Resolution to authorize commencing of phase 2 of the WEA project. I need a motion to bring this to the floor, please.
You have it. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Board or town? We need a roll call?
I believe so.
Okay, all right. So seeing none, call.
So we just had a presentation, and we're gonna move to phase 2, but phase 2 isn't fully defined yet because we don't know what the new costs are, correct?
It would be, the way that was written is essentially authorizing to proceed with the remaining money and then finalize additional scope within the town, between the town and us as we progress based on priority level.
Gotcha, okay.
You good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, call for roll call. Ms. Jean?
Councilman Hyde,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bowers,
Yes.
Supervisor Bean,
Yes.
Councilman Stevens,
Yes.
and Councilman Williams.
Yes.
All righty. Next on the agenda, resolution to accept meeting minutes from March 4th of 2025. I need a motion to bring this to the floor, please.
Motion.
Second?
Okay.
Real quickly,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
number 15, the prepay. Last week I brought that up as a floor resolution, and I just wanted to clarify, the miscommunication was mine. We are settled up with the invoice. It doesn't change the payment at all, the $937.50. But to clarify, it went to Mad Addy, the company, not to the assistant. I just wanted to clarify that for the records.
All right, any other conversation? Seeing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Resolution supporting Warren County's application to the County Infrastructure Grant Program for North Creek Sewer Project. All right, so for those of you who are aware, Jim and I met with the Board of Supervisors, well, I don't even know when at this point, and we were able to secure $2.5 million. So we were able to award bids. During that conversation, what I told them is we had a number of grants that were in process. And that those grants would could easily cover most, if not all, of the grant money that the county provided. This happens to be one of those grants. It's county planning. Ethan Geddes in the process of doing it. It's for $1 million. So that's what this is for.
It's an additional $1 million?
No, so we got 2.5 from the county. Right. What we're looking to do is use as little of that as possible. Right now, I think we've got about $3.5 million in grant asks out there already. This would be one of them. Yes. Lowering what we would need to get from the county at that time. All right.
10% or a match?
Actually,
Yeah, so this is a grant that the county is applying for the county. If we were to apply for it, it would affect our USDA loans, all that good stuff. So the county is doing this. I'm not sure, but any match is on the county, not on the town. So what this would do and how this would benefit the town and our sewer district is the 2.5 million that we're getting from the county is over 10 years. This would be reimbursable at the end of the project and lower the amount of loan that we have to take out, eliminating that interest and then ultimately dropping some of the cost of the EDU interest payments. So the caveat is it can only be awarded to parts of the sewer that haven't gone out to contract yet. So we do have a couple of remaining contracts that were not bid on, and change orders that we can do. This can go to paying for those additional items.
Okay. Any other questions or? Okay. So call for, did I get? No, I didn't, sorry. All right, so I need to bring this to the floor, please.
Motion?
Second?
Any other conversation? Okay, seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All right, next is resolution to authorize PPP director to replace damaged highway department door. We had this up on the agenda last time around. We put it on hold because could not recall the rationale. Essentially, what we're going to do is replace a garage door that was damaged by a truck. We are going to use remove any of the good panels from the current damaged garage door so we can, and we'll have one brand new garage door and use the panels on other damaged doors. Steve, I got that?
Yep.
Okay. Need a motion to bring this to the floor, please.
You have it.
Second?
All right, any discussion or conversation?
Yeah, the missing piece we had was how much it would cost just to replace the panels. And the cost was about half the cost of new doors. And we're getting a new motor with it. So with that, it makes much more sense.
Yep. Okay. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, next on the agenda, a resolution for highway superintendent to hire open CDL position to start March 24th. Fred, you want to address this at all? Just-
Yes, we've had 2 applicants. One is a CDL, one does not. The CDL has preference.
Got it.
So I'd like to
Move forward.
move forward. He's retired, but he's got a crane license and a Class A CDL, and he wants to come work.
Cool.
Good.
All right.
Good find.
Need a motion to bring this to the floor, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any other conversation? Seeing none, call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Resolution to hire Dan Prouty as temporary MEO for medical leave. This has been discussed on a couple of occasions at other board meetings. I need a motion to bring this to the floor, please.
Motion?
Okay.
Second?
All right. Any other conversation or discussion? Seeing none, call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. In your packet is the historian's report.
Do you want to do the,
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. That's not on the agenda. Where's?
I have it right
No, that was the library one that came in late.
Got it, okay. So, the library is looking for a part-time librarian. And so we are basically giving them permission to advertise for this part-time position. Okay, need a motion to bring this to the floor.
Motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Is this in addition to the other employee that she has? Is this,
No.
did she lose one?
If someone's leaving, this is to
Someone's
replace.
leaving, and this is a replacement?
Yep.
Okay.
Did I get a motion to bring it to the
We
floor?
got a first and a second.
Yes, okay, I need all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so report. All right. Committee reports.
Not much in between week here. We'll be getting the highway committee and next week from Monday, the solid waste committee. A lot more at that point.
Economic Development and Marketing Committee, we just had a meeting. As Allison said tonight, now that we are at the end of the process with the comprehensive plan, we're applying to start looking at grants for the community. And also, as I said last week, we got the occupancy tax grant with Chestertown and Horicon. We had a great first meeting, so we're going to next steps on that, and that's very exciting. The Budget Committee, we had our first meeting, 2 members of the public showed up. We talked about what priority areas would look like for planning, communicating with departments, and how grants that we've put out for, such as the one from for zoning, would impact planning for this year. And our next meeting is going to be April 10th here upstairs from 5 to 6. And comprehensive plan, we had it really tonight. We are going to be having some more meetings going forward. April 2nd is the next meeting for the public workshop, and it will be downstairs, I believe, 5 to 6.
Stevens?
Senior Day for the Town of Johnsburg Senior Committee. We are still working toward our workshop that will be held April 23rd, 9 to 10. We will be inviting from 30 to 40 people to take part in this. Local organizations such as the Outreach Center, North Country Ministries, Gore Seniors, and OOTG. We will be inviting local businesses, inviting fire, EMS, and Elderwood. The workshop goals that we will be looking for are there ways to improve communication among local programs to reach seniors? What can businesses do to make access and shopping better? What are the best ways to get organized volunteers? And what is the best way to address then transportation needs for seniors? So we have other goals that we will be looking at for the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Williams?
Well, sewer committee, ongoing. We continue to meet pretty much every week. The committee is active and involved. We're moving on to the next phase of things that we need to check off our list to progress. User agreements for laterals. Rules and regulations are now coming back to the forefront of a need to look at and address. A lot of work going on. I just want to recognize there's two gentlemen sitting here in the room right now, both Brian Suazo and Jonathan Supka, who I want to thank them for still picking up the phone when I call. These guys have done a fantastic job of helping to coordinate everything that needs to get done to keep this project moving forward. Their experience is invaluable, and I want to thank them. So thanks.
Appreciate
guys.
it. Thank you. Okay, good. All right, next on the agenda is warrants. Need a motion to bring this one to the floor.
Motion?
Second.
All right, any concerns or?
Yeah, we got, since the last town board meeting, I have been reminded of the definition of three different words. One of them is never say never, because one of the things that I said, as long as there is a KLW payment included in the warrants, I would not vote for it. However, I was introduced to two other words, and that is default of contract and breach of contract. It seems that whether I agree with the hiring of KLW or not, the situation is our town has entered into a contract with KLW to supply work on the reassessment. So having said that, what I was notified of is if we do not pay on this contract, we will stand in breach of contract. We will be defaulting on our contract. We will then not only be responsible for repayment of the past, we would also be responsible more than likely for court costs, lawyer fees, et cetera, et cetera. So there does come a time that even though I use the word never, I have to kind of back away from that and say, as long as our town has a contract with KLW, I will vote in favor of supporting that contract.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well said. Okay, motion to bring this to the floor, please. Move. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, I think we have two, right? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, privilege of the floor. Who's first? Who's up? What's that? No.
The town was asked earlier to set the public hearing for the comprehensive plan. Was that something you were going to
I think
do?
we do that, yeah.
Yeah.
May sixth, I think we should set that for May sixth, because
Okay.
otherwise Allison's not gonna be able to put it in the newspaper.
Yep.
So can we put that in?
Does it have to be a resolution?
It can be a floor resolution that we agree to set a
Right.
public hearing,
So-
prior to the
Do we have
town
to
board
wait
meeting.
that long, or can
We
we
need
have
to-
it for the second meeting of April?
No, we need to do it now because of how the time for it.
I think he's meaning the
No.
public hearing
Can we set
itself.
the public hearing for the second meeting of April? Do we have to wait until the 6th?
Yes, because
There's
Yeah, the
specific
Because
timeline.
April second is the first public hearing that's already scheduled, and then that would be the second one that we're doing. So, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
timeline.
it's the timeline. That's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, April
So
6th.
could I get a motion to bring that
Motion-
resolution to the floor?
Motion to move this to the floor, please.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Public hearing for May 6th.
May sixth.
Okay. Need all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good.
Yes, sir.
Time.
6 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah,
prior to the- yeah.
Thank you.
And board meeting,
Yes.
thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder.
It was Danae, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janae.
All right.
Thank you, kids.
Sorry, Jamie.
No, you're not.
Yes, Jennifer, go ahead, please.
If no one else is gonna say it, I'll say it. What hasn't been discussed tonight is the work done on this peculiar evaluation. I don't care about the necessity of it, we all understand it's needed, that we have to be at 100% mark day, but it would be helpful if you could talk a little bit about the process, because the numbers don't seem to make a lot of sense.
So the process. I guess for me, because I did a lot of thinking about this last night, and when I say a lot, it consumed my evening. One of the things that and I'm gonna say this very publicly, that the house that I now live in was purchased in 2014. If I wanted to move here now, there's no way in creation. I couldn't do it, I couldn't afford it. And I think if you take a look at what sale real estate values, or sales of recent real estate, it's beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I was in a meeting the other night with, and then ended up meeting a couple that moved here from New Jersey. They said that they paid $750,000 for the house that they purchased, and followed up admitting that they had overpaid.
They paid 3 times the asking price to purchase that property. It was $256 was the original asking price on it. It was driven up a little bit to around 300, and they stepped up and they pushed it up. It ended up selling for $750.
Wow.
That affects everybody's house around here.
There's 9 people after that same.
Right.
So, and so for your, I went through your email, okay? When I looked at my reassessment went up by 27%.
140%. 140%.
Yours went up by 140?
140%.
Which property?
247, and the
Okay.
property next door, 243, went up 20%. You can't tell me.
Then, and here's what I would say, guys.
140, and if you look at my 4 properties together, the average increase, was 68%. This was
What-
done 2 years ago.
Right, guys,
No, it was 2 years.
what, 2 years ago?
24 data.
Now, and I will tell you anecdotally, in the conversations I had this weekend, there were a number of people that felt that their reassessments were spot on. I only spoke to one.
140% in
Guys,
2 years.
all I'm telling you is what I've heard, other than yours, Jennifer.
So I'm just
And
asking
my
about the process.
point is this, that KLW will be here March 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, and April
I'm
1st.
sad, I got the first appointment.
Okay.
But I just would like to understand what the board understands about the process that they used, how one property can come up with a 20%,
We,
and the next door property would be 140%. And this
That's-
was done 2 years ago.
guys, all I'm telling you is that we outsourced this, because the last time we did it,
I
there
understand.
was, the last time we did this, it created a pretty significant rift in this
I
community.
understand that,
And
but I'd
so,
like to understand what the
then
process is.
the process is that it needed to be done.
The process, how did they come up with it?
All right, hang on, all right,
I'll take a little bit of that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I
sure.
could
Take a little bit of
really
that.
use some help with this.
I'm 300% higher than my next door neighbor. The assets of my property are different than the assets of my neighbor's property. Bathrooms, kitchens, finishes, age of structures.
Always true,
It's,
yes.
it's all
Agreed with that.
factored. I also, tomorrow I meet with an appraiser. But I've made my appointment with KLW because they're data driven. And it's the data that they're reviewing.
Right, and
That-
I
that
want to
was-
understand that process. What is the data they're reviewing? How are they coming up with these numbers? What does the board understand about whether they're doing a good job? How do you know
That's a
that they're doing a good
KLW
job?
question.
No, it's not. It's a board question, because the board is the governing
They're not
body.
experts in the business though.
But they have the legal obligation to oversee the contract and understand what's happening.
They cannot
So
have any
what are you
influence on it.
doing to
They
understand?
can't have influence.
I think the
on it.
question is, why was this company selected? And I
Okay,
think
so-
that
Good
is the
job.
question.
What's-
that
How
you
do
can
you
answer.
do it? How do you know that they're doing a good job?
It's low inventory, high demand.
Well, one of the.
But that's true that this property.
KLW does this for municipalities all over the
So
world.
Jennifer, So Jennifer, let me give you an example. So, sitting on this board, you've got a pastor, you've got a coffee roaster, you've got a house painter, you've got a school teacher, you got a motorcycle mechanic. Our expertise is in evaluations and assessments. Just as when Fred goes to build a bridge, Fred doesn't know all the engineering that's going into that bridge necessarily, right?
I bet he does, by the way. Go ahead.
But you hire someone to go and engineer and build that bridge, right? So what we've done is we've hired KLW to go and do a reevaluation, a reassessment based off of current sales in town. The process is that you take your properties and you go to them and you say, how did you get these numbers?
I will, that's a different question than the one
But
I'm asking.
that is the process, and they should be able to tell you exactly how they got those numbers. Is a coffee roaster? I can't tell you how they got those numbers.
But you have an obligation to know that they're doing a good job. You're gonna have to sign off on this.
The
How do you
assessor,
know?
the assessor will sign off on
I
it.
asked for a meeting with the assessor said, I have no knowledge. I can read you the email if you'd like. I have no knowledge.
And right
I'm
now,
not the
it's,
right person
it's,
to talk to, I don't have it.
These are all
Yeah.
very preliminary numbers.
yeah, right now, they're going to have those informal meetings with everybody that wants to understand the process, know how they got that number. They will then create tentative roles, which our assessor will need to sign off on. So she will have to review all of those tentative roles and sign off on them. The assessor works independently from the board, and that's how it needs to be.
I would like to know how you know that KLW is doing a good job.
There's only 3 of these companies that we could actually pick from. I mean, guys, I can't tell you,
Historically, do they
You
have a
don't
good
know
rep?
if they're doing a good job.
they just
Historically,
finished
they have a good
Buffalo. They just
reputation.
finished the city of
Reputable
Buffalo. They just finished the city of Buffalo.
So they have our data, but they don't have influence of the color of my home, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. They have access to all the data. They had all the data that basically Letitia sent over to them for them to basically crunch them.
So you have no idea why 2 properties that were
I-
assessed 2 years ago. came up
That's
with
not my,
such
that's not in
wildly
my, that's not in my
different
wheelhouse.
changes in
That's not in my
market
wheelhouse. Yes. I'm sorry, Jennifer, it's not, I don't do real estate. I mean, I
I'm not
don't,
asking you to, I'm just asking.
but you're asking me how they
ascertaining.
came to that. I
Are you
can't tell you how.
evaluating them?
I can't tell you how they came to it.
We don't, at this point, how, I
You don't
understand
have,
what you're
you have
saying.
no idea whether they're doing a good job.
How
Just
do you
based on
determine
the
that? That's our problem also. We're in the same situation. As Kevin said, there are 3 choices. We chose one that is reputable. It has done large cities. This is a small blip to them. How do you, I mean, it is difficult to determine that anyhow. It's not something that can be, you go look up and see their
It
ratings.
just seems so peculiar.
Kelly,
I remember back when the pool was going on before, this fellow from the state came in to issue the state's opinion as to the quality of the assessment done by Letitia. He came out with that she was 96% on target, as most situations. And that was said right out there for everybody to understand that she had done a good job. It was somewhat ignored, but that's okay, you know. The thing is that if that data that she did back then was 96% on board, and that's the information you gave this company in Buffalo, well, at least they got a good start.
You know, Jennifer has a very good point, and I think that the town board needs to emphasize, and I know it's on the webpage, the proper process on how to go through. And the first one is KL, whatever they are.
W.
And the second one is going to the Board of Assessment Review, and if you don't like that, you have STAR and Small Claims Court. And
Which is very effective.
you need to do your research on it, and you're absolutely right. You've got to research this. And I'll tell you, the process is pretty fair. But you have to be able to make your point. And I agree with you.
Fair
I
for
got a
someone who
huge
can
jump
do it.
on mine too.
I have 2 postgraduate degrees. I can understand the data.
No,
The
no.
average homeowner in this town can't.
I believe me, and I think they need all the help in the world, and I really wish that we're gonna help them. Because it's gotta be a fair process, and it's gotta be a fair assessment. And we should not be going out and burying people.
Believe me, guys, it's
I know.
not, not my,
I know, you're not
my
doing it.
wish to
You're
bury
not
people.
doing it, but it's, the process needs to be followed and people need to be aware of how to do it and how.
Arthur?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think following up on Jennifer's question, so if you think about tonight, you understood the variables related to the sewer district. You understood the variables related to the water district. And now, what you're saying, we don't understand the variables.
This is one, honestly, I have sat with Letitia more times than I care to say.
No.
And this is one of those where I am a little, this is not exactly one I follow all that well.
I know, I'm not asking for the details, Kevin, honestly. I'm just talking about public responsibility to understand what the variables are going into KLW. Shouldn't they be informing you just like the sewer folks did, just like the water folks did? I understand you can't deal with all of this at the same time. So if none of us really know what went in to the analysis.
The data that.
And I'm just suggesting the board should have the responsibility. I understand this.
My data that I was presented with last year, as my property was modified from year to year to year, is the data that was used to arrive at these numbers by K&W. I had a 300% increase on a piece of property, and I had about a 50 or 60% increase on a piece of property. I'm a little distraught too, but there are, if you read the letter and then you call K&W, I believe, Roger, did you call K&W?
I did not.
No?
I did.
They're helpful.
Yes.
They're helpful. They're helpful. And that phone number is there, and there's a bit of
I called
information
the
to
phone number
clarify it.
and the woman who answered said, we're just an answering service.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're
I
just
didn't-
an answer,
I
I
didn't
can't
call that
help you,
phone
I don't
number.
know who you can call, I don't have any information, it's
two numbers.
just an answering
I,
service.
Jennifer, I can give you a number when we're done.
I just looked up KLW on the internet. Oh.
Oh, okay. I didn't do that, I listened to
But
what
some
the
people,
town
but
said.
I think the point is that the complaint last time, Bruce, the complaint last time from people was that they didn't have access from information, they didn't have communication. There were elderly people in the community who were intimidated, who didn't know how to go to the internet. So to say that feels a little dismissive of the people who maybe are in that same position. So maybe there is something as a board that we could do, whether it's asking KLW to give us simplified information that like revals for dummy that we could print up and have at the library, or something that is just makes it less scary for people, because again, like I know how to read it, but even when you get it, or but some people might get that and they may not know how to do it. And we have to remember that 2 years ago, a lot of people felt the same way, and to have empathy for them in this situation now, and not just say you can go online, because some people don't know how to go online. And that's, we need to be able to give them that information. And if we have that number, let's do that for them.
I mean, do you have basic data? What percentage of people had an increase in assessment? What's the
I
average
won't know
increase?
that, I
What
won't know that
percentage
until
have
they're
an
done with
increase?
all of this. I
So
won't
the
know,
truth is,
I
Jennifer,
won't know any of that until it's done.
the truth is, once
the
it starts,
I know that about the
Posted,
numbers.
They're not they're meeting with people at the end of this month. We won't have data until they're done with
You
all of it.
have data on the proposals right now,
You should,
because
yeah.
everybody, I give you
Yeah,
two
you
data
mean,
points,
I'm
that's
sorry,
for
for
property.
for property.
What did they propose? How many people have an increase?
And how do you sort it?
Increase.
it's on it's on the Warren County site today.
I'm sorry, Pete, go.
I don't raise my hand, so. Well,
Sorry.
actually, listening to Anna and listening to Arnold, I think they both have something right here, where, from what I've been hearing from people, the variability is enormous. So if we were to imagine that they took the data from Letitia and floated and just added 3 years or 2 years, the variability in 3 years can't be that much across the town, I don't think. So, or it doesn't appear that. So it seemed to me that what Anna said is, what we ought to have, so that everybody can have a broad picture of this first, before they go into their own stuff. Because we can't have 1,100 households appeal. I mean, that's just kind of a tough way to do it. But if we had.
You might.
Yeah, we might,
You might.
but it
I
would
mean,
be
that's
helpful.
why you
I'm just
hire,
saying
so
what
that
Anna
they do
just
it.
said is, if we had them come in and explain their process and explain the criteria. How did they arrive at this? We may or may not agree, but at least we can at least understand what it was. I mean, what Arnold said, I don't think we should have hired him in the first place.
I know you don't.
I said
knew
this
that.
when I started, when I left, we should have used Letitia. We're not doing any better than Letitia would have done. If they're using her data, why would we spend $100,000 and everybody's unhappy? That's not, that's crazy.
She wouldn't do it.
refused to do it.
No, she didn't refuse.
Yes,
Yes,
she
she
did.
did. It's in
I
the,
Was
talked to her, no.
Be careful about putting it.
Yeah. Just made it hard for her.
It's right in the minutes.
it's in the minutes.
She said prefer, I think.
Bruce, I'm sorry, did you wanted
Yeah.
First, I guess I'm gonna go along with it here. When we say Letitia was 96%, that was after all the corrections.
guys, that was news to me.
By the time the state got the numbers, they were all corrected. Now, 86 went through an official litigation, but do you know how many people, and myself included, went to Letitia with an obvious mistake? Mine was about modular, and I know dozens of, it took me 2.5 weeks to get my appointment. The day I went in, there was people in and out, and for that 2.5 weeks, I don't know how many changes were made, but it was a lot greater than 96%.
That was after 50 years of variability, not 3.
2, yeah.
But I keep hearing this misnomer about 96%. That was after all of the corrections. There's the first one. Now, I believe Letitia went in very inexperienced, and I'm gonna say that she's probably a lot more experienced now, obviously, in doing a reasonable job. But it's in the minutes, she did not want to do it, and to a certain extent, I don't blame her, she got a lot of flack. It is still part of the job though, so I don't understand that part. But KLW, they have to follow the rules. It's your square footage, the type of construction, the year of construction, your acreage. They don't just make things up.
But aren't those the same rules Letitia used?
Yes.
So how did it change in this short period of time? Oh, 20% and then 140%.
What happened on your first session with Letitia? Was it up?
This is one of those guys where I hate to tell you, but we got
You
discovered
didn't own
during
the
the
property 2
pandemic.
years ago?
Been here and not there.
So,
I'm-
okay,
I know-
no, I wanna make this point.
Guys, hey, come on, a little bit of decorum here, please.
I wanna make this point. So with Letitia, the first time yours didn't go up much. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I said. I said I sucked it up, took whatever it was, I said, you know what, we're all taking it.
Because with mine went up a huge amount the first time and a very small amount this time. So,
I can't say that.
All
I
right.
can say that.
so if yours didn't go up a lot the first time, and now it's being caught up.
I said I sucked it up.
Can I've got a woman here would like, go ahead, you have your hand up, please.
Oh, I just want to kind of go backwards a little bit in
Sure.
terms of Jennifer's question on process. I think I understand that the board is all diverse and that you don't have the expertise to deal with what these people, but I do feel that there was a responsibility on the board's part to make sure that the public had some transparency with this company. A letter in 2025, January, stating that they were going to do the assessment, and then there was the assessment. People have asked me if I knew, that aren't here, if I knew how they did the assessment. Was it a housing comparison? Was it a formula? How did they do this? So I think one of the things the board could have done is potentially gotten somebody from the company to come in prior to the assessment being mailed out and kind of explaining a lot of these questions that you can't understand. And I think now going forward, because we're past that point, that maybe the board can get some information. I don't want to go into my appointment 15 minutes. That's what you've got, 15 minutes. I don't want to go into a 15-minute appointment, not sure, wasting time for them to tell me what their process was. I want to know the process so that when I go in for my 15-minute appointment, I have some intelligence about what I'm going to be talking about. So what I see as the board going forward is that you put out an informational document that helps the public understand how to approach these appointments.
Okay.
I think that's And I think that's a great idea. That's what I was saying earlier. I think Pete misunderstood me, is we can put something together that we could get in the library to people very easily.
The gentleman in the red,
I'm way behind you guys. But I guess the question comes, 2 years ago, we had an assessment.
Yep.
Was it 3 years ago?
Yes.
I'm hearing 2, now I'm hearing 3. All I know is my assessment went up significantly. I accepted it, I appealed it, we came to an agreement, I had an attorney representing me. That's fine. Why? I've received no communication. I travel, I'm not up here all the time, although this is my official residence. And why was the assessment necessary? Why didn't the town tell us why it was
so
necessary?
there, so.
I got a letter, because the letter was forwarded from Kale. I thought it was scam. Because I had nothing from the town saying, this is the people that are representing me. So I didn't answer it. Because I said, who are they? So I didn't do that, that's my fault. But I would have
So
received
the-
some information.
so the-
Saying, you're at a point, the state is mandating this, we're going through a lot of grants, we have to bring our assessment up to date. None of that has happened, maybe that's in discussions, but I would have really enjoyed hearing that. So I wasn't really surprised when this week I got the assessment saying, I'm up 22%, when I went up 60 some odd percent 3 years ago. And that's my discussion with KLM, right? KLW.
Yep.
I understand that. But I think that the board had a little bit of responsibility down in a newsletter or an announcement, mailing out, just saying, this is why we have to do it. This is the firm that we're going to hire to do it. Expect that you're going to hear from them. And you'll hear from them what process you have to follow in the terms of the information. They'll give you an assessment. It's just a proposed assessment. Well, when does it become a real assessment?
When everything closes, when they finish up the rolls.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would have enjoyed hearing something so that I know that really this was an authorized group from the town and you're fully behind them doing this.
All right, I'm sorry.
Is there a way to have one of their representatives come to a town meeting?
Yeah, I can ask them to do that, sure.
Basically go over what
Yeah.
each one of us want to hear?
Sure. I can ask, for sure. Yes, Kelly.
I think that what we've been hearing from 3 individuals now is that the same problem that plagued the first reval, which was lack of education. We have not been informed, we have not been educated. Many people frankly can't even read their tax statement, let alone understand what a reval is after 50 years of never having one. Now that we had one, people seem to be a little bit more tuned into it, but they still don't know the details. And I think it's incumbent on any board, not just you guys, but boards of the future. Every time there's a reval, we have to go back to education, grade 1, and walk everybody through what exactly is gonna happen and how it happens and why it happens. It's important. It's important that we stay tuned in every 3 years, as suggested by the state, to keep up our value in our town. Otherwise, we don't have any money. I mean, I can remember back in
That's part of the reason too,
2008, there was money to pay the employees, there wasn't money to buy a tool for them to work with. I mean, the town was desperately poor. I remember Mark Smith saying, this town doesn't have a poverty problem, it has a tax problem, because there's not enough money coming in taxes. So it's just, and the next phase of education is the BAR, the Board of Assessment Review. What do you have to do in order to come in and lay out your findings and get the board to vote for you? I mean, it's not that people want to vote against you, but there are certain laws that are required that you have to prove something to the board in order to make a change. They have to know that.
Kelly, when is the bar, June?
I'm gonna ask Candace.
No, it's on the webpage under the assessment.
June 20,
May 29th.
May 29th.
That's grievance day.
Yes, Regents Day, yeah.
So can we schedule a bar workshop? So there's people that would like to
it's very easy. New York State has it right on YouTube. And they have different videos and you go through and they explain exactly what everything is and what terms are, what everything means.
Yeah,
So
but-
that's
but
how
you-
I learned about it.
Sure,
And
absolutely,
I went to the
that's,
state, but
but
I
a
agree.
different venue would be, I can't stand staying online with it, on the phone and being on hold, I wanna talk to somebody, So having someone that can help, explain and navigate that, YouTube is great, that's a
we can link
venue.
it, but we can do something else.
Absolutely, so I would suggest we try to organize a bar workshop so that people
And I can go and
Because computer too.
And it could go and it could go in conjunction with people knowing how to read their assessment, that it doesn't necessarily mean, because this is one of the questions that came in, it doesn't necessarily mean that when your property goes up 38%, that your taxes are gonna go up 38%. And people need to understand that, but that was not communicated to people. And so that needs to go along with it. And we could even do a very easy infographic that could go out, that could be put together very quickly.
I know
within a
two
week?
people who have hired
Because that's where the
appraisals
appointments
to
start.
go in front of KLW. And both appraisers, both companies said KLW was very close. And that Warren County in general, but Johnsburg is the hot spot in the last 3 years for selling real estate.
Finally.
Jeff, did you have another comment, question?
Our previous assessment, and somebody in the crowd, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was based on values of 5 years ago. There were 2 years of data collection. Then the final assessment, which came out, anybody say it was either 2 or 3 years ago that assessment was
23.
finalized?
23, Jim.
It was
Why in the assessment do they keep saying 2024 and 2020?
That's what it's.
But
So maybe it's the end.
I think our last rebound was in 2022. I honestly don't know how long it took the assessor to collect that data.
I seem to think that
Couple
it
years.
was based on values.
It was based on values back to July 1st of 2021. The data was 20 and 21, the reval hit in 22. The sales were for
There is a
19.
deadline of July 1st. That's right, Roger. There is a deadline of July 1st.
So
The
there's-
value of your house as of July 1st, the previous.
So what we haven't talked about is that it's comparable sales. And in the case of the 22 reval, it compared sales from 19, 20, 21, right in COVID. That was my argument the whole time. People are screaming with pockets full of money to buy houses, and it's driving me out. I was told, if you can't afford it, you'll have to sell it.
Right.
And unfortunately, I would say, Roger, based off of my little microcosm, it's gotten even worse.
Correct. And it's continuing. You're right.
The house next to me sold for an ungodly amount of money. And then they wanted to put in a heated driveway and a heated deck. My value, now I'm compared to that home sale, my value went up about 45%. The poor neighbor right across the street went up 120%. And now we're all same square footage roughly, same type of bedrooms. And we're all now assessed at about the same amount.
Equalizing.
Yeah.
Mindy?
Just one comment, comment and a question, because I went to a presentation with, NCPA had Letitia talk about how she was doing that before, and my understanding was, what she presented was that, they were adjusting and using sale data from 2018, pre-COVID, 18-19, and fitting into that so that it wasn't as escalated. So I don't know if now if KLW is, if now we're seeing that full adjustment of what's happened,
Probably.
from COVID. I don't know. That's a question we can
I
ask.
can certainly ask, but my guess is they're
Yeah.
looking at sales data from 22, 23, 24, 20.
Right,
Right,
which is then
but I can
this-
ask the question
as
for
it's
sure,
up,
yeah.
But
Again,
then-
it's not, guys, this is
But
not
then-
becoming an
My question is then, do you have don't we have as a town the ability to make a decision as to whether we jump immediately to the 100%? Or if we stage it? Is there no sliding scale there?
So the thing with assessments, and this is what I understand, everybody, if the town's assessed value jumps, say 45% across the board, that doesn't mean that your taxes are going up 45%. In many aspects, your taxes might go down. And the reason being is because now we're getting more sales tax money from the county, and we're realizing the full potential of the land that is state land here. So we get an increase in the state land at 100%, and we get more sales tax money. If the board then is fiscally conservative and stays within our tax cap or right about that range, you might see that your actual tax bill goes down, even though your assessed value went up 40%. Right? So that's the piece that people have to realize and recognize is your assessed value that's the value of your home should you put it on the market today. Right? That's about what you could get for your home. That's like your sales account. And I continually scratch my head on Peaceful Valley Road, a 900 square foot cabin with no basement sold for $300,000. Sold $300,000.
So if I may, guys, hang on. A couple of things too that I wanted to discuss tonight as well. But one piece is that when you take a look at state land values, that's Lexi from Real Property, she crunched the numbers for me. We lost out on $78,000 in state land revenue last year. The other one that I'm trying to get my hands on is what we actually lost in county sales tax revenue. I have a number, but I want to make sure that I've got the right number, because if I open my mouth and stick my foot in it, I'm going to regret it. I have a general idea of what we lost. It's a significant amount of money, but until I have the exact number, I'm not going to say that number. But we lost a lot of money last year, and we went from 86% in 24. We are now at 78% equalization rate now.
And we lost it because we
And
weren't
that's
at
what,
100%.
because we didn't pay 100%.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right, and that's
absolutely.
Can you say that,
The
Candy?
COVID numbers were discounted 12%.
12.5.
Intentionally, so that we could have that gap for the COVID.
Right.
Everybody's was discounted 12.5, whatever it was.
I mean, one of the things that I asked for Bob is to give me a number of general idea of what the percentage, if you take a look at home or sales prices, what the average sale price was for Johnsburg in all 7, and I haven't been able to get that number, but I'm sure it's significant. I mean, the house I bought in 14 was for $225,000. I can't even begin to imagine what I could sell for now. And I'm telling you guys, I couldn't afford to buy a house here. Now, when you're talking about a cabin that's 900 square feet with no basement, they want $300,000. I wouldn't buy it. Pardon me?
They're getting it.
Right, exactly. That's the point.
Where they're bidding over the
Right.
prices.
Our cap was 2.7,
Yes, tax cap this year was 2.7.
2.7, so you guys, if you can keep it under 3,
Oh, my goal is to get it to 2.
yeah.
That's, we've already had that conversation with the budget committee. I'd like to try to get it to 2.
Where I know in one meeting, it was proposed that they wanted to increase our taxes as well, to 8%. That would kill the
And it goes to Jim's point, if we stay at 100%, we continue getting the amount of county sales tax we're supposed to be getting, and the amount of state land revenue we're supposed to be getting, then we won't have to worry as much about where we are in the tax cap and how much money we have coming into the budget. That's really the other part of the equation, guys. At 100%, we get a lot more money from both the county and state land revenues.
So what it all comes down to still is that I don't know what data to bring when I see numbers as wild as these.
Let me do this, Jennifer. Jennifer, if I may, let me call Bob Kazar, all right? And you and I will trade emails. And you and I will sit down on the phone with Bob, and then you can have that conversation before he gets here.
And then how
Okay.
about we share that with everybody?
Right, I will share that information with everybody, but I can certainly put it out on the town website, yes.
Is there an opportunity at your next meeting or sometime before that to have Letitia come in and do a presentation in the auditorium and explain it to everybody, how this is driven, how the data?
I can certainly ask that question.
So our
Got
next
enough
meeting is April 1. The meetings with KLW are before that. So what we can do is Kevin can post that information on the town's website.
We can do the YouTube and we can get an info sheet together
Yeah.
very quickly.
Are you gonna have
But
it under
that
an
would be-
assessment tab? Like, where will you put it on the website? It's not the
I'll put it on
easiest
the homepage.
website.
I'll put it right on the homepage.
I agree.
So Anna, the bar is something separate than the preliminary meetings with KLW.
Yeah.
So
The whole
we'll,
process.
yeah, we'll work on
There's more
setting
time on
up a
that.
bar workshop
And,
as well.
yeah, the workshop and people that need it.
Just a reminder that we did do that. I say we, the board that I sat on in 22, we brought in, I think it was Vincelet Law Firm, and they did right in the auditorium, the middle of May, they did a bar workshop that was open to any and everyone from the community that needed that guidance.
And then John Stack came to do a presentation, head of New York State Real Property, he's retired now, but he did come, gave a presentation.
Was that at a regular board meeting, Candace?
No, that was a special meeting.
And it might have been the same meeting that Vincelet was there.
No.
It
It was
just,
different.
What can
I don't know.
to the?
I don't know.
Was at a regular.
I know we hired Vincelet Law Firm to be involved.
He's the top guy in the state.
Michael, go ahead.
So I just want to say there was a board meeting that happened where an assessor, or maybe it was an assessor, but it was somebody brought in by the board, the previous board, brought in somebody to go over how those evaluations actually come up with. I believe it was during the Zoom time, but I believe that recording is still available
Yes,
on the
September
website.
21,
Yes,
'cause I was at that meeting.
yes.
What's the date? Letitia.
Yes, there was a presentation that was made about how
September.
roughly the assessments were done.
The workshop that I'm referring to was May 12th, 2022, and that was held in the auditorium, so that very well may have been recorded as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
I'd like to hear
back to the
KLW's
The
process.
point that Anna, that you made earlier, that makes sense, is that there are a number of residents that won't be on the internet and can't get on, Johnsburg site to explain it. So maybe there's another avenue that you can find to get that information in their hands so that they're not as confused about it. And the other thing is just a mention on the comprehensive plan. Within that, there is a median home value information in there. That I thought, she said everything was supposed to be updated, but it's, right now, it says median home value is 205,000.
And that plan's a draft, so that's all stuff
That's
that
a
will.
draft,
yeah.
so, yeah.
Bruce.
I want to make one more, trust me, I don't like it, but we live in a very desirable place to live now. This is only gonna get worse. It's only going in one direction. So what that means to us is those people sitting right there become their most important people. When you vote for a person who's not gonna spend through the roof. Because our evaluations are up here now, and if you spend willy-nilly, it's gonna go up fast. If you stay conservative, very important, your vote. Stay conservative.
I think that maybe Cheryl asked the question, but I wanted to clarify. In going to the state side, states is sort of unique, New York State, in that it can be at 100%, could be your tax rate, but they leave it to the village and the municipalities to determine it. So if I understand correctly what was said before, the town has a possibility that even if we're assessed at 100, and that's what it says it's going to be, from the tax that we're going to have, it might be 70% of that value, or 68%, or 84%, depending on what the budgetary needs are. And if that's the case, who sets that? Does the board set that?
That's determined by the budget.
Well, the budget is the budget, so I think we're talking about two different things here.
It's about.
And that we have your tax rate, what we're trying to do, guys, is make sure we have enough money in the budget to stay at the tax cap or below. Your assessment is basically what the value of your home is.
I understand that.
But then at some, and here's where I'm a little bit, is how you, once you get that assessment, how you determine the actual taxable value of your home.
Correct.
That's what he said.
That was what. I guess
Right,
I didn't
and
say
that's
it
what I'm trying,
clearly.
that's where,
That's what my question was.
right.
And who determines that? Does the board determine?
No,
that
I
based
don't
on
know.
their
That-
needs?
Well, it's the budget. So if we're at 100% as opposed to 78%, if we're at 78%, we're missing out on sales tax revenue
No, that's the assessment.
of assessed value. Yeah, so we're missing out on,
I understand
No, he's
that.
not
Right.
talking
My
about.
So-
question is,
if everyone's at 100%,
No.
and we create a budget, and now our assessed value is larger this year, your tax rate will go down based off of your, we'll set a budget,
I
and
understand
then,
that.
and then
My
your
question
tax
is,
rate
who
gets
determines
determined.
that?
Who?
That's
Who
the,
determines
The
that?
budget
Does
determines
the
that.
board?
the budget, in
Who
the
determines
budget
the
that we
budget?
get.
So that's the board. The board does that.
Yes, Pete.
Just a suggestion, I mean, about having someone come in, and I think that
I
consultant,
agree with you.
they
Yep.
need to back up what they did. And I don't think you want to have someone else come in to talk about, they're the ones that put this together. We need to understand what their criteria are, what their process was. And I think it ought to be a big picture discussion first. We don't need to get into, everybody else's house here.
No, I get that.
Have a big discussion, and then people need to understand the difference between an assessment and the tax rate.
Correct,
Because,
yes.
and what happened, why, 75%, if everybody's at 75%, then it's equitable. If everybody's at 100%, it's equitable. If some people are at 100 and some people are at 89, that's not
It's not
equitable.
equitable, no.
So the goal of the whole process is that people, all taxpayers are paying equitable for equal value homes. That's the only reason to do it. It's about equity. It isn't about how much tax you pay.
So just a clarity on, Jim, of what you were saying, which, is that you were talking about getting our sales tax that we're due, but that's with the town's value being at 100%.
Correct.
Right, so the town has a value, I think when you were saying it, I think folks might have thought you meant their value at 100%.
No, it's
But it's
the actual
the
town
town. It's
value.
the town has a value with all those, all the
Right,
properties.
and that's what they based.
Yeah.
So last year, when they did county sales tax, it was based on 80% equalization rate.
Right.
This year, our county sales tax will be based on 78% of equalization rate.
So we got less.
We're gonna get less.
We're gonna get less.
Yes.
So on the town site, Town of Johnsburg, under assessment, there's a links page, and it says link to the first update of townwide assessment reeval. That's the Zoom meeting that Letitia had explaining why this is the first and the whole process, so I would suggest everybody listen to that.
So it's still on the website.
Jeff, can we,
But I want to hear.
Let me throw in one little-
whatever.
I know, I
Caveat.
How they
You
did
know,
it. I don't
if-
care.
If the value of our town increases,
it
and
has,
and 2 years ago, we were 10% the value of the town of Queensbury. Our values went up this time, and we happen to be 12% of the value of Queensbury. We're gonna get a little bit more of that tax, that sales tax, coming to the town of Johnsburg, and the town of Queensbury, in theory, will be getting a little bit less. So
Not necessarily, unless they had a reassessment and they're assessed at 100% equalization rate, it will stay the same. The distribution of the taxes.
he's probably right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I see
They're
what
both
you're
in too.
Yeah,
Right.
it will. stay the
However,
same.
though, if there's a disparity and we bring ours up to equal, they will, and they haven't done that, then that will be the case. Our tax increase and they won't.
Yeah,
see, our part of the pie will
Their
increase.
money, not
You're right,
Not
right,
taxes.
excuse me, thank you. Paid tax, not state tax.
Yes, Candace?
If Kevin wants to raise the budget by 2% and the value of our town is this big, you're gonna pay considerably more if the value of our town is this big on Kevin's 2% that he wants to raise. And that's the goal, to get
No, the rate
the
changes.
value, right, but the value, the rate changes because the value of the town just went up.
Right.
So you get sales tax. you get-
State land revenue.
When you have to raise Kevin's 2%, it's spread out over a bigger area. So it goes down what they pay.
This is stuff that this, it's a.
Evaluations are wrong.
I second. 2% plus 100. I second. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Since, KLW fixed the dates when we could have our appointments,
Mhm,
and since we all seem to need more information,
mhm.
when are we going to have this presentation by some representative of KLW, or is
Let me reach
not-
out to them and see.
Is
if-
that not going to happen?
I don't know that. I can call them tomorrow and I can find out if it's possible to get somebody here and maybe we can schedule something for them. I mean, he knows that this has become a very interesting project.
Okay. So we should have some more information, because, you know, if he can't come to April 1st,
No,
that doesn't help
no.
the other
Understood.
4 days
Yep.
of appointments.
And if he comes in, because a lot of us may not have to have a meeting.
Right, so my point is I will call Bob. He's been very good about getting back to me. I will call him and I will say, is it possible for you guys to make a trek east from Buffalo?
So actually, we can talk to one of you and know.
Well, I think though too, I think the point, guys, is if I can get somebody here to actually do a presentation here in Tannery Pond, a lot of this stuff may be solved.
Has to happen before we make.
Yes, no, I mean, I will be on the phone with
I
him
want
tomorrow.
Jennifer's question.
I would encourage everybody,
Guys,
I would encourage everybody to get a hold of KLW and meet with them while they're here. My house is even though it went up 46, 47%, kind of the fair market value. I'm gonna go through the process so that I can understand it and be able to better articulate it to the rest of the townspeople as well. So, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
but I
ask
think what they're wanting,
some of
Jim,
these
you're gonna
tough
have a
questions.
meeting with KLW, what they're wanting is
I know.
something prior to the.
Right, no,
Absolutely.
yep.
Absolutely, but I would still encourage everyone to meet individually about your individual property.
Follow the process.
Absolutely.
All right, anyone else?
Again, just a reminder, it's a 15-minute appointment.
I will try to get somebody here, Cheryl, so
Yeah.
that,
So,
all
you know,
right.
that's.
All righty, folks. Anyone else? We stand adjourned.
Hey,
Bruce. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn. Second.
Usually you stand up.